kitchen with the kitchen door open, so I can still get like a bit of tan on my
It,
forehead.
it's a beautiful backdrop, but even a more beautiful subject, my friend.
Thanks, babe. Look at this forehead. Look at this solar panel.
Yeah,
It's
you
doing
could
its
be the
work.
next 5G receptor.
Fitty G.
Goody G. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Tentacle Croissant. Remember to smash the like button and then go flip your mom as well. It's me, Pierre XO, and then Richard Grannon freezes immediately once I turn it up a level. I can't believe he
I,
just
I,
froze. Where'd you go? Oh, there you
I,
are.
tw-
Okay.
I twatted my own iPhone, which is where the signal's coming from. I chopped it with my hand in excitement.
Oh, and it really lagged it?
Instantly. It was like, don't touch me. Don't put
so,
your hands on me.
so you are the 5G antenna.
I am. Well, we all are, right? Isn't that actually a thing? Like you're water, so you do actually help the signal if you're
Yeah,
close
like
to it.
we're giving a certain frequency off and it feeds off of each other in a weird way or something
Yeah.
like that. It's like your
Yeah.
aura. You see mine, it's pink.
My aura is just working for me right now.
Hmm.
Your aura is pink.
And do you like it?
I love it. I'm connected via a mic, so everything should be fine, but I have to get some kitchen roll because my nose is leaky like a 5-year-old.
Okay, go ahead, my friend. I'll take over once more.
You be the big boy.
What's going on? It's PRXO here on Tentacle Croissant. Remember to smash the like button and call your family, your uncles, your grandmamas, mamas. And we're going to be talking about something real serious today, and that is me. Remember to grab your exclusive makeup palette from PRXO, not collaborating with Jeffree Star. Anyways,
So
what's up, dude?
today you watched you watched Blue Story.
Yeah, I had a hard time finding it because it wasn't on. Not like I was trying to look for free copies of it on torrent websites or anything like that. I would never do such a thing. But I actually did rent it. I legitimately had to go to Amazon and then rented the movie because that's if I were to hypothetically look at torrented copies, the only ones were bootlegged, like with a handheld camera and Arabic writing on top of the thing. So
Oh,
I couldn't really
oh,
like
yeah.
yeah, man. So, yeah, saw it. It's a movie. If you guys don't know about, you would explain this way better than me, man. So,
There's an unusual effect, a phenomenon that's happening in London, and it's been going on for a long time with gangs, young black gangs, and there's an unusually high level of fatality in the intra-gang violence there. And they're people who are battling over postcodes. They're gangs who form over postcodes, and then they meet up, and they're kind of like watching. If you watch that film, folks, it's called Blue Story. You'll see there's moments that are reminiscent of if you ever watched films about English hooligans. It's almost in the same. There's something very English about it. It's black gangs, everybody speaking with that English Caribbean patois of that everybody in London has. It's a really strange thing, and I feel like I know these kids because I taught in London and I taught kids like that. And so when I watch these films, there's a couple of them. There's Adulthood, Blue Story. There's a number of them. And what is happening is a disproportionately high level of fatality in the gang violence. So they will meet up like groups of hooligans and shout and scream and push each other, but every once in a while they stab each other. And the typical death is like a stab straight into the heart, which doesn't need that much penetration, and it just kills people instantly.
yeah, I mean, to bring the duality of our situation, man, it's really, really similar to what happened on my end of the earth, which is Southern California, East LA area, South Central LA type of thing. And also play like near Long Beach as well. A really similar kind of thing going on. I think from what I see in that movie, it was basically when these areas of Southern California were at their prime in gang violence within the 90s. I mean, I wasn't necessarily deep within that, but I've seen a lot of documentaries and I've known a few people that would move in and out. Other than that, I've like only driven around these areas. So my personal experience with this isn't so much as a lot of the things that I've researched and seen.
It's interesting how there's certain coordinates that are the same anywhere in the world, though, for gang
Yeah.
violence. It's people do the most violence to the people who are most like them. It's not like in London, we have Albanians, Russians, English, black gangs, Chinese gangs, Vietnamese gangs, but it's the gangs who most look like each other. They're the ones who do that's where the death comes.
Yeah,
It's not like the Yardies fighting the Albanians. That happens, but that's not the fat end of the wedge for the mortality rate.
You see that in practically every aspect of, I think, reality in general. To bring a more lighthearted example, I mean, you see musicians like Prince and Michael Jackson. Just because they're both androgynous figures, they get compared immediately, and then there becomes this subconscious competition between the two. You see it in fast food restaurants, McDonald's and Burger King. Like, you can consider, you know, these musicians or these restaurants two separate entities, but for some reason there's this natural polarity, like this magnetic opposition between the two that just naturally occurs for some whatever reason.
Well, you mentioned the LA gangs, and I remember when I was a kid growing up in Portugal, and I went to see a film that was called Colors. I think Sean Penn's in that movie, and it's about the Crips and the Bloods. And I remember coming out of that theater going, why would you kill each other because you have a red bandana and I have a blue bandana? There's also something about the violence. It's not just people who are in the same education, class, and culture bracket, but the difference between them it's not like, oh, it can be. It must be arbitrary. We choose team red. We choose team blue. Now let's kill each other. And in the film Blue Story, it's a similar arbitrariness. It's lads from Peckham and lads from Deptford, I think. Well, and these are like if I took you there tomorrow, you'd be like, which town am I in? I don't know the difference between these two fucking towns. They're shitty, post-industrial, abandoned towns.
Yeah, like when I was watching the film, though, the way that gangs from South Central LA and this part of the world, it's really, really obvious who's a part of where. Like, they wear literally head to toe in red or blue, sort of a thing. But in this film, they're basically wearing the same color, like puffy black jackets, all, like both of them. The only thing you can tell is the bandana itself. To add on to this, though, for a good amount of my youth, I never ever even wanted to begin to associate with this culture in general, because I never even got the chance to in the first place. And because of that, I never understood what would bring anybody to this lifestyle at all. I just thought it was like, I was just a nerd on the computer. Like, why would everybody do that? That's anything. But now, I mean, of course, nowadays, especially towards the end of high school and even until now, I totally, completely understand why that lifestyle and that culture would be so enticing to teenagers, youth, adolescents, whoever.
Why do you think it's enticing?
Well, I mean, a lot of these gangs are brought up in a lot of lower income areas with really broken homes, with no parental guidance or any sort of authorial figure, and a very shattered, I think, self-identity, which becomes a shattered group identity. So with that being there, there's lack of community and lack of stability. And then obviously you have to take in the practical notions of safety and all of these other things as well. So you put those all in a melting pot, and then you get a kid trying to find its way. So they join a gang instead.
There's stuff that needs to be said on that particular thing of like a lack, particularly of male authority figures, where you end up with this young, testosterone-fueled energy, looking for initiation, looking for recognition. Particularly, it must have a physical element to it. That's just human beings. That's what we are. But it's reckless. It's unchanneled. I wanted to bring in a conspiracy theory element to this, though, which is, I found it interesting. When I went to do security work in New Zealand, I worked for a Maori Tongan, I nearly called them a gang. They were a collective, a group. It's not a gang, but it was called Pride Security. And even in Auckland, they have Crips and Bloods. And I was like, wait, how? Like, how? Like, Crips and Bloods these are terms, these are words, this is a lexicon that's born in California. You can't just you can't take it up. And I was like, how did that land here? How does that virus, that meme, get all the way from there to Auckland? But somehow it did, and it set in. and nobody questioned it. They kill each other over it. Now, so you have Kiwi, Maori, and Tongan and Samoan, Crips and Bloods who kill each other over the same rules. Like, oh, you're wearing the red bandana in the blue bandana area. We're going to murder you. And I was like, that makes me think. Obviously, I am paranoid. I openly admit I'm paranoid. I see patterns where there are none. I just had this thought, like, is this deliberate? Is this some sort of psychology experiment where somebody's brought in this thing? Like, let's keep these young men, let's keep them occupied with some shit that doesn't matter. Because if there's a revolt or a riot, they'll be on the front line of the revolution. However, if they're stabbing each other and fighting each other over mobile phones and trainers and cars, then they'll be too preoccupied. That was my paranoid thought.
Sure. I mean, I think there could be definitely a conspiratorial way to look at it, especially with how the neighborhoods are aligned. And, you know, if you look at other things, like, for example, how they would literally they didn't even try to hide it. It was obvious segregation in terms of these neighborhoods. And they call them also like food deserts, where they can only access fast food restaurants. And a lot of the geographical infrastructure within these communities are basically made for conflict and for people getting drunk, because liquor stores are also just around as well. Like, the actual physical landscape only sets up some sort of confrontation and conflict, because with little resources, people fight over each other. But to add on to what you're saying, though, I think that there is like a deeper lying, I know you hate it, but Jungian aspect to this, where there's like this natural pattern that the male energy has to go to. But like you said, if it's unchanneled, it becomes reckless. I think within with extensive male energy, or whatever you want to call it, it needs the conflict. It needs a team. It needs teamwork and an enemy to channel, let's just say, violence, or, you know, straight yang.
Yeah, definitely. There's did I tell you my story of going to Long Beach? I've already told you that one.
No, what? Really?
Oh shit. When I was 21, I had no interest in going to America, but my girlfriend at the time, she was obsessed with America, and she insisted on me going with her. So we flew to LAX and we rented a car, and I was like, I saw Long Beach on a sign, and I liked hip hop. I liked Snoop. So I was like, I fucking want to go to Long Beach. So we went to Long Beach, and at age 21, I had that same thought. It was like a pawn shop, as in where you can sell your jewels for cash. Gun shop, liquor store, chicken shack. Pawn shop, gun shop, liquor store, chicken shack. So we were like, oh, we probably shouldn't stay here, but I was really hungry, so we went to like a chicken takeout place. And within 5 minutes, this gang of lads came in. And they were like, "Oh, is that your car outside?" I went, "Yeah."
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I told you, didn't I? Yeah, yeah. It was Long Beach, yeah. And they could tell, even though it wasn't marked, we specifically asked for a non-marked car. They just saw the license plate, saw the build, were like, looked inside, saw our beaming white faces, and they came in and said, "You guys, you should probably leave as quickly as you possibly can." They're like, just drive down that road, don't stop, get back on the highway, and just leave. But it was an environment. There's a Sicilian New Yorker philosopher called Zimbardo, and he wrote a book called The Lucifer Effect. And it's like, if you don't give people the opportunity for anything else, there's only one thing they can do. If you're raised in abject poverty, no way out. And I was just like, okay, so I can get drugs, I can steal jewelry and sell it. I can buy a gun, and then I can get drunk enough to use it. It's like the environment is just like this. It's like a hellscape to create people to be criminals.
Right. Think of it. If you think of it like a video game, right? And you put these little sims and you drop them off, and then you can make a city with a ton of options, with a ton of resources at any corner. There's like parks and shit. And then you literally, like, what people used to do when they played The Sims, or still do to this day, is they just put the Sims in a concrete box and then put a chimney in there, and then it just sets on fire. And the Sims are like, oh no, it's pretty dark. I don't know why everyone has a natural drive to do that. But if you
I've never played this game, but it sounds amazing.
yeah. I mean, but that's the first thing people do for some reason. But anyways, if you take that metaphor or that example, and you do that within an urban, and you set up what would look like South Central LA or lower income areas within England or whatever.
Yeah,
the Sims They have nothing to do, and there's
Yeah.
no food or no resources or money. So then what's the next
Yeah.
thing you do when you have nothing? Okay, you look towards people / community. So then you look
Yeah.
to the community, except
Yeah.
the community has no money or no resources.
Yeah.
Well, these guys over here have more than we do, and we can't just grab whatever we can anywhere else. And there's nothing else to do. There ain't no parks. There's shit here. So
Yeah.
then let's get our friends together and reach to the next thing that we can do, which is the conflict part.
Well, that was I was very, very left leaning, very radical leftist at university, and I remember getting into it. Yeah, surprise. And I remember getting it to somebody over race, and they were like, "Well, there's no black swimmers and there's no black tennis players," and I was like, "Show me the fucking swimming pools in the areas where black people are living, you fucking nitwit. If you put a swimming pool there and be like, if you swim." The message should be, if you swim, there's a career for you, because the message is clear. If you play football, I'm saying American football, or you can ball, you can make a stupid amount of money. That's there in the indoctrination process. It's not, who the fuck is going to be magically enter the simulation in Inglewood and then wake up and go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a fucking swimmer.
You know, that's like that situation is as tone deaf as like coming from what is a rich place in London? Fuck, what is it called? One of Chelsea, right? You're coming you're coming from Chelsea, and you're like, why doesn't everyone here just play polo? Oh, I can't hear you, man. You cut out. Can't hear you. I can't hear him. He always has so many technical issues, Ben. Anyways, I'm gonna go off on that, guys. No, I can't hear you. Nothing. Gone. He's stuck in a fucking what looks like a bathroom with no audio. Pierre, you've gone deaf. Me? Have I gone deaf or have you gone deaf? Is it me or you? Hello? Hello. Works, but no audio. Can you guys hear me? Can he? I can't hear it. What? Is it me or you? Who is it? You can hear. Okay. You can hear me. I can hear Pierre. You can't hear Richard. Okay. It's my fault. Anyways, I'm gonna be reading your comments. Everyone's just talking about who they can hear and who they can't hear. Anyways, yeah, man. Imagine like, oh, nope, can't hear you still. Nothing. Can you click the little cam mic button below? Is there any options there? Any built-in mics? Can't hear shit. When a man loves a woman. We hear you. News conspiracy. Squid Rich knows too much. YouTube silencing him. Honestly, at this point, you guys, I have been re-uploading the same video for the whole last 7 hours since this morning. And every single time it gets demonetized, and then I have to change the title each time, and I don't even know if it's demonetized still. It's really annoying, man. And now Richard is getting silenced from the platform as well. There you are. I hear you. Nope. I just heard you for 1 second. I heard you for 1 second. When a man loves a woman. Cowboys of Compton ride around on horses in the hood, right, Pierre? Yeah, Lil Nas X. I'm gonna take my horse. If you actually watch his music video, he's in the hood on top of a horse with a cowboy hat. So in that case, that's a very specific example, but apparently it exists too. I'm gonna take my horse through the old town road. I'm gonna ride, but I ain't. I'm gonna wait for Rich to get his mic to work until he leaves me again. YouTube trying to silence. Honestly, YouTube is kind of in a fucked up place. I've been re-uploading the same video all day, only to get it demonetized. Videos are not getting pushed to the algorithm. Richard's sick of it. He just quit YouTube. That whole David Icke thing got censored, dude. We live in a strange damn time, man. I don't know. In the meantime, smash that like button or some shit. Can you imagine trying to lip read this entire thing? I'm going to respond to you guys in the meantime.
Wow.
I hear you.
So listen, that argument was started with an evolutionary psychologist who was saying to me, the reason why there are white swimmers is because we carry more fat than black people, so we float more. And I was like, are you out of your fucking mind? You call yourself a scientist. That is seriously? White people are fatter? That's why we swim better. I was like, that is fucking insane. That is modern scientific thinking then. You just take your idea and then you reverse engineer an explanation along racial lines. That's absolutely standard, by the way, in science. Totally standard.
That's reaching for supremacy. Like taking the biggest flaw of like, I get fat, therefore I'm the best.
I was just like, what logic is that? Like, yes, I'm chubby, but I float better than you. I'm like, that? No, come on, guys. Do better than that. Fucking do better than that.
What I wanted to say is, like, say if you came from Chelsea and you played polo and you ended up in Inglewood and you're like, yo, why don't they play? Or, yeah, excuse me, why doesn't anybody play polo here? Where are the racehorses?
So to that point, there's actually like I got into this with an architect, and she was really smart. She pointed out something to me. In Brazil, people play football, because you can put a field there and there's no upkeep. It's just concrete, and then you steel bind the goal into the floor so they can't wreck it. Same with basketball courts.
Yep, exactly.
Really, it's a cage. You just lock it in. You could try and burn it, I guess, but there's nothing to burn. A tennis court, you could destroy. A polo, you just kill the horses or eat them or
and another example that's along the same lines is like, the stereotype. Why are they all rappers?
Right.
You think they can fucking live in that situation and buy a double stack Marshall amp plus a Telecaster, a Stratocaster, a whole drum kit, plus they don't got fucking parents that would spoil them with that fucking amount of money for Guns N' Roses?
That's all going to change, right? Because of the technology that's there.
Yep.
And this will prove the point, is that like you can have a whole musical set on your phone or on your computer now, and we won't see it for a while yet, but in the next 5 years we'll see it.
It's already here. It's already here. And now all of the kids that would be in the or trying to be the next Guns N' Roses are now trying to be the next Migos, Run DMC. Like, now these kids who could have been the instrument playing ones with all the resources are now trying to rap and replicate who didn't have the resources just 10 years ago.
So there was a psychologist I spoke to the other day, and he was talking about the studies indicate that if there isn't a father figure in the house, the male in the house will become very violent. And we started to, I was actually interviewing him for a website, but we ended up doing almost like a therapy session for me. My father wasn't around. Well, he ended up in prison because he's a criminal. And I followed exactly the path that they talk about, where there's no father there, but I wasn't poor. So it's because often we say it's the lack of education and it's poverty. I was educated. I'm private school. I went to a private school, and there was money around. I wasn't like underfed or anything like that. But because my father wasn't there, despite my advantages, I still ended up a criminal. I mean, I could have, possibly even should have gone to jail because of the drugs and the violence that I got into in my 20s. And some of it got serious. It got really, really heavy. Why did I do that? And it's not my field. This guy is called Sean T. Smith. He's on YouTube. I highly recommend him. He was explaining to me exactly how there's a kind of rage that builds in the absence of a father, or having a father who just isn't interested in you at all. And there's this violent compensatory explosion that occurs where I had pretty much every opportunity you could have. I still chose to be a criminal.
What do you think about this? This could be a reach, but let's think of it like, what do you think of this theory? So with an absent father figure, because my dad wasn't exactly around either, right? So I know exactly how it could be. And what if that rage and that overcompensation with masculine energy was to replicate the missing male energy that you had? So you were doubling down and aggressive tendencies to kind of encompass your own male energy that you missed. You know, you're kind of trying to create this ambiguous thing to be there. You know what I mean?
I think you're exactly right. I think that answer is, you can draw from Freud, you can draw from Adler. Adler would say, where there's insecurity and a sense of inferiority, we seek for compensation. The Freudian thing would be like, there's no, as you use the word energy, there's no libidinal masculine energy there. So you grow up thirsting for it, having to produce it yourself rather than receiving it from a father figure. So you totally overcompensate, and you're like, well, I want the hardest edge. I'm starving. So now I'm going to over order at the restaurant. I want the hardest edge of masculine energy. And my heroes growing up, you know, all psychopaths, all American psychopaths. All my heroes are American psychopaths. From the age of 12 to 16. And I didn't realize that I was internalizing an absent father figure, consuming loads of like gangster movies. I was obsessed with Taxi Driver, Natural Born Killers, and A Clockwork Orange. I'd watch them on repeat. How the fuck I'm not in jail, I don't know. Because in the end, by the time I got to my mid-20s, you disinhibit me with like CPTSD, alcohol, and cocaine. I was like a fucking time bomb. And I did eventually go off.
Yeah, I think also something to consider is that when you are manifesting this fantasy image of what the ideal male figure in your life is, it's coming from a teenage brain, which is just amplified like G.I. Joe Mortal Kombat. You know, it's like you have no like foundation of what an actual even person is, whether it be girls or guys. So you're manifesting this father figure, but in the form of a 13-year-old boy, which is ideally like those movies that you were just named, or like
totally overcompensatory. And they were it's the masculine archetype, because what I think, to add another layer to it, because I'd suffered abuse, I wasn't rescued by a father figure. My father was either the abuser or he was indifferent to my abuse. And so I'm hoping for Robert De Niro to kick the door down with a Mohican and shoot everybody. I'm hoping for Woody Harrelson to go and but there was no rescue. So I had to be my own rescue fantasy. Yeah. And the rescuer has to be able to deal with the level of what I'm experiencing as a child, demonic attack. So in order to fight monsters, he better be a fucking bad dude.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, I was a pretty well-behaved kid throughout until I was like 18 or 19. I started really feeling the absence of what we're talking about, like even now, but especially a few years ago. There was just this one point when I was like at 20, 21, where that thing that you experienced, probably much younger, just like fucking hit me. It was almost as if that ambiguous floating authoritarian father figure, the invisible one, just fucking smacked me in the face. And then I just adopted that energy, and that's when the band started. I was just
kind of full unbridled. It's unbridled rage, isn't it? This kind of a lack of strong father figures, I think, extends out into the whole of culture. I think like the attack on masculinity, the attack on men. We're seeing like men go into their anima possessed cowardice, like the flabby.
Before I forget, so on top of this, I think that everyone is assuming that the solution and the antidote to this is to soften that energy so it doesn't become violent. I don't think that's the answer, because I think any guy that's naturally born a dude or whatever, in whatever way, has the biological makeup, whatever, a Jungian spirit of the masculine sort of a thing, right? So you have to have that there in order to be a guy, and it has to be channeled correctly. It can't be suppressed, because then it becomes even more toxic.
You can't soften it. You can't soften it. That's a mistake.
Somebody to know with their own life experience to push it, to shoot it in the correct like a stream of water. You know, if you put it in the wrong zone, it can really flood the entire city.
Stream of water. That was Freudian of you. Stream of white water.
You made it Freudian.
But you're absolutely right. I think that when you look at something that is because unbridled, thoughtless adolescent testosterone, which is what we fill the infantry with, is narcissistic and psychopathic. These are the people who can do the worst atrocities because the brain isn't even fully developed to process empathy and to process consequence. If you try to soften it, well, that's what's being done. They've tried to soften it, and what have we got? We've got a world that doesn't work. We've got guys with lower testosterone levels than any other time in recorded history. We've got a society that's basically breaking down, and people just aren't having kids as much anymore. We're all tending towards androgyny and the simulation of sexual intimacy, which is pornography. These are really, really frightening stats. And I do think it's because of the softening of masculine energy. But it's, what would you do? You see this monster and you go, fuck, we need to turn that down. We better geld that horse before it bites somebody. Let's soften it. And actually, it's what you just said is, no, you don't soften it because that poisons the well. You have to redirect it. And guys don't need much. They don't need much to not be psychopaths. Had I had 3 or 4 years of what I was thirsting for under the guiding hand of a man who was a grown man, who was like, don't fucking do that. Do this instead because you'll feel better. Just to have that reflection, just to have that interaction and that guidance, it would have completely cured the quote unquote disease. It would have healed the problem. We don't need to soften masculine energy. We got to guiden. That's not a word. We've got to guiden it.
Yeah. So I thought of a good metaphor. I hope it's good, at least. So imagine you had like a leak in your room, right? And the rain would come down really hard and it went through this hole in your roof, right? If you tried to just seal it up, it would just combust and shatter the entire fucking house and the infrastructure of the entire thing.
That's it.
Maybe the solution from when that flood happens from the top of your roof is to actually build an what do you call it? The gutter system, right? Like build a gutter system that redirects it and let's just say distributes the water evenly throughout the house so it lands softly on the floor.
Yes.
You know, the solution is not to seal it up and then that way it explodes. It's to guide it correctly.
That's a very Viennese psychoanalytic view. It's like the German tradition is you don't suppress energy, you express it, because if you suppress it, it corrupts and then it comes out in other ways. And those ways will usually be neurosis. They'll be unhealthy. The thing is, I think that it's very easy to see this in 2 dimensions. You go man angry, man violent, anger bad, violence bad, man bad. Let's chop off the anger and the violence, where actually what you really have is a system of poor strategies. So that guiding male also needs to show the younger male how to interact with women. He needs to show him how to be seen in a way that's healthy. Because if my only way of being seen, coming back to teenage gangs, is pulling out a knife and shanking somebody, and then I get my name. People know I get my name and people know who I am. They film it and they put it on social media. Everybody in my social environment is like, yeah, that was fucking cool. Everybody who's in the opposing team is like, oh my God, he's a fucking nutcase. You're sublimating the desire to be seen by a father figure and also to be seen by the opposite sex, because a tremendous amount of this is about competing in the sexual marketplace, trying to drive your way up the social hierarchy. So it's an absence of strategies. I only know one way, which is pulling out a knife and stabbing people. And I think I've worked for guys in the criminal fraternity who were like 50, 60 years old and they never moved past. How do I get a girl to pay attention to me? Well, I have to do the equivalent of pull out a knife and stab someone. It's through like intimidation. It's through shock and awe. It's through the most brutally non-nuanced or just showing off. Maybe showing off here would be the symbolic same gesture in the Jungian sense. Jung said that when animus meets anima, when man meets woman, he draws his sword of power. And you get your sword out and you go, look at my fucking sword. Yeah, my sword is awesome. My sword's the best sword. It's a shiny sword. And everybody's going, yeah, okay, dude. It's fucking great, that lad. Similarly, women raised in the same environment who lack a nuanced way of interacting with men, unfortunately, not fortunately, but unfortunately, that will work for them. So the guy and the girl are in this reinforcing pattern that that's the right way to be a man and the right way to be a woman is to respond to that. And so it's a self-replicating virus in that, to that extent.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. On the other hand, like say if the boy or the man, the kid gets the reinforcement and the idea that he shouldn't become violent and he needs to suppress his masculine aggression and tendencies. So then he becomes a softer individual, right? But then once he does that, what happens? Men do not respect you. You are the kid getting pushed in a fucking locker.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
much as most women say they want a sensitive, soft dude, these are the guys that generally will never get attention from the women.
Okay, I'm not defending what women say when they say that, but you could argue philosophically that if you take linguistically what's said in the sentence, when a woman says, I want a sensitive, soft dude, the word there is dude. So she wants a man. Now,
Right.
if a man is soft and sensitive, that's fantastic. If you're a real man and you're initiated, you're accomplished, you're a mensch, you really can do the business, and then you have a soft, sensitive side that only she sees, that is delicious. It's beautiful. I love it. But if that's all you've got because you're neurotically suppressing your masculinity, or you've been beaten into cowardice, you've never been let out of the introverted state, that's not good. That's a different thing. So if we hear what's actually being said, I want a soft and sensitive dude, meaning a fully fledged man, then the answer is yes.
However, the archetypal structure of what a man is so distorted and fragmented, I think, in the construct of the societal language right now, that in order to be a guy, for dudes is to be super fucking aggressive, and there isn't any nuance within this. There is no like solidified metaphorical role model of a dude who is sensitive and sweet.
Are you talking about the alpha male movement now?
Sure, why not? Like,
it sounded like it, like the super, when you say like a super aggressive alpha male, alpha dude, to me that it falls within
So let's use that as an example. So that is the manifestation of the culture not having a real solidified male energy archetype, which means that there is no sensitive, soft nuance to that overtly aggressive figure. So because we don't know, we are illiterate when it comes to whatever that role is. So then again, absent father figure, teenage boy brain projects the ideal image. Alpha male. I don't want to hold my girl's purse. It's that type of thing.
Well, and I think you used the right word there, which is illiterate. So you would say that like I'm thinking back to when 50 Cent released his album Get Rich or Die Trying. I think that's 2004, 2005. I got this sense that that was like peak alpha male of that culture, but it was very I wouldn't say false. I wouldn't say it wasn't artificial, but it's very assisted, very produced. And I think that was a pinnacle moment, and everything after that, I think he killed it. I think he actually something changed after that, and it was like this peak expression, and it was even called "Get Rich or Die Trying" of narcissistic psychopathy, super duper alpha male. You know, the cover is him with guns, and he's photoshopped his pecs, and he's all oily and muscular. And then after that, things started to shift on the in other areas of American culture. You have guys, I remember saying to this years ago, when I'm looking at the so-called alpha male community, I'm like, why do you all change your voices? They do interviews with me and they talk like me and you were talking before the interview starts. They click the button and they hit record and they go, hey guys, today and I'm like, what's this fucking weird WWE wrestler voice that you just put on? Is that what being a man is? Oh, okay, I'll do my special. I'm going to give you the SmackDown, the WWE wrestler voice on.
So, I mean, from what we're talking about, it seems like that the culture is missing a father figure. The whole culture itself doesn't have a solidified father figure. So collectively, everyone's projecting a teenage version of what they think a masculine man is, which is this.
Because masculinity got criminalized, and there was no. I don't want to play this gender wars game because it's so tedious. But there would never. It wasn't that women did it to men. It's that certain portions of humans did it to certain other portions of humans, and nobody had a response. There was no pushback for decades. I was born in 1978. My entire life up until now, I've swum in an ideology that basically says men are shit, men are useless, men are rapists, men are child traffickers. We're the worst. And I'm trying to be a man with no father figure in that environment. I'm a little confused. I'm a little like, okay, well, what are the boundaries of this? And the problem is we're not individuals. We're not. We should try to be, but we're not. We're tribal creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was in a tribe that said, okay, Richard, you're the perfect man, that's it. I would be the perfect man in my head. And there's nothing outside of my head. So solipsistically, it's game over. Now I have no tribe. I have this broad sort of endlessly fracturing kaleidoscope of people. And no matter what I do, I'm a piece of shit. There's no box you can tick. You can't win this game. So I'm spinning in my who am I supposed to be to get to where I feel compelled I need to get to? So I could be like, okay, I can relax. And that, I think, is where you get MGTOW movements, because guys just go, fuck it, there's a game I can't win here. But they process it differently. The story they tell themselves is, women have done this to me. And I'm like, there's not individual women out there doing this thing to you. It's happening. It's a happening. It's not people. There's not people sat there going, how can I fuck your life up, Brian, your life up, Henry? Nobody's doing that. It's just fractured this way, in this direction.
Yeah, the leaning towards entropy. Dude, last night I had a little mini meltdown. You were part of it for a second because I got this like crazy message of someone trying to cancel me through an Instagram message and calling me like a misogynistic woman hater, slut shaming, I
heard that as misogynistic for a second there. I was like, what the fuck is misogynistic?
I ain't a misogynist. I'm a misogynist.
It's a whole new category. It's only for flip lords.
Yeah, only for flip lord. So I mean, to go about what you're saying, you just feel like no matter what route you take, I joke about this all the time on my platform, man. If I compliment a woman, I'm a predator, I'm hitting on her, and I'm sexually assaulting her. If I don't, I'm MGTOW, and I'm moving away from it, and I hate women because I don't want to be a part of it. It's hard to explain to somebody who isn't really going through it. I seriously now, especially with becoming a public figure in the last few years, it's amplified. It's on steroids. And I'm dabbling within the drama community. It literally feels like no matter what route that I would try to take, it's gonna be demonized, and I'm still a piece of garbage. Yeah. Even if I do get nice compliments on DMs and stuff like that, it just still feels like it.
Well, you're not. I think as human beings, we need to feel seen. We need significance. You need to feel like you're contributing and that your contributions are valued, and you need a place. And there isn't really a place for men. There isn't really like a sort of but let's like, this is because people have complained about a couple of the other videos we've done. We're two single men talking from our points of reality. There are other people that we grew up with who'd be married now, they'd have kids. And so within their tribe, their small tribe, there is recognition. There is a sense of belonging. It's not right that it should be that small, that it's literally the people you're either having sex with or you produce through sex see you and nobody else. But there is something there. Well, there's no sense of place. You can't really feel satisfied until you have a sense of like, okay, this is where I am, and I'm not assumed to be guilty. Whereas now men are assumed to be guilty before the conversation begins. And it's a very hard thing to live with, because it makes you defensive, and then it makes you paranoid, and then it makes you're constantly feeling like you're pushing back against something, which you're actually not.
Right. And what's fascinating is that I never felt like I was a part of any fucking group, whether it's race-based, gender-based, sexual orientation, none of this stuff. I can technically say that I am a guy and like I'm a straight dude or whatever. But what's interesting is that now from what my own experience is that, first of all, I never ever felt like I spoke for men. I don't represent a majority of men by all means. I do not. I'm like far away from this men's rights, MGTOW, incel. Like, I'm on the opposite end of this. But because of I don't know what's going on in the culture right now. We need to box things in and polarize things. Now, regardless of what I do, I'm still yelled at being the spokesperson for all men. I'm now just part of this amalgamation of guys, which I never even began to associate myself with in the first place. So now I have the message from the external world telling me that I am a part of that group.
But you're drawing fire. You're drawing fire. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to sacrifice yourself on this particular bonfire. And I see, you know, when I'm talking to you and I hear you're like, in a sense, you're a social justice warrior, which in a sense, I'm a social justice warrior.
I wanted to make a video admitting that I am, to the actual technical definition, the biggest SJW you can ever think of.
So if you see people being exploited or you see people being gaslit, I mean, there's nothing more cringeworthy and awkward than like a middle-class educated white guy going on about the plight of black people. It's horrible. It hurts. When I see other people doing it, I'm like, oh my God, my kidney's going to come out. But I can't. I just have to. I have to say the thing about the tennis courts in Compton. I have to say the thing about the swimming pools in Inglewood. When I'm on the inside and I hear, they're not always white. It doesn't like it. It's a class of people, educated people, scientists, some of them professors. That was a professor that said that to me about white people being fat, floating better in the water. And you just go, this is insane to think this way. And, you know, so and then I go, and then I'm outraged. I'm like, it's insane to make that. So I have to say something. And then you put yourself on the front line. You don't have to do that. You don't have to stand on for every like injustice and double standard that's out there. I know that you hate double standards. And then you're then in a confirmation bias echo chamber, because now you're only talking to crazy people. They're the ones who are pushing a ludicrous agenda. Your whole thing yesterday, which we'll have to explain to people, where you were arguing with somebody, there was no argument that individual had that made sense. And myself and your majority female audience is saying to you, there's no logic in this lady's line of reasoning. We're all telling you there's no logic there. And you can't argue with somebody who's not using logic. It's not possible because they've abandoned logic. There's no argument left.
No, you're totally right, man. I would usually never respond to these things, but it seemed like such a good opportunity to get a written physical example of what it looks like to be attacked, gaslit, and be, let's just say, insulted with the foundation of pure emotional reaction and ideology. Everything that was being said was coming out of a place of internal rage, subjectivity, and ideology. There was no actual foundation of what she was saying.
So back to, we all need better father figures. So do women. So do women. And I'm not putting myself forward as a healthy father figure, but in the case of that particular lady you were talking to, if you gave me an hour to chat with her, non-confrontationally first, to just go through and be like, okay, like I would with a client, I'd say, okay, let's be philosophical. What is your point? And she would say her point. And I'd say, that's cool. You can have whatever point you want, but take it to its logical conclusion. You have stated that A is true. Are we then saying that B follows?
But you're mansplaining now.
Well, you know, I mean, I can't help the fact I have a dinkle.
But here's the thing. If we go through ideological arguments, I love this shit from a distance because it's so fascinating to see how people rationalize irrational arguments. Like that's kind of why I joined it, because I was
you just said the essence of what it is. How do you rationalize a fundamentally irrational, hypocritical argument?
I love absurdity, man. You know, it's like the lemon.
You were being attacked for sexism from a fundamentally sexist stance. That was why I think you get so angry.
Exactly, man. Because these types of arguments are naturally, inherently the most absurd you can get. So a part of me just wants to dabble in there and just see, like, what extent will someone go to keep their subjective emotional attack? And
Yeah,
so
you're sparring. You're sparring in order to
yeah,
learn.
yeah.
That makes sense. That
So
makes sense.
in this case, like when I hear you explaining the things that you do, I can already, you know, put on the simulation and kind of plug me in the matrix and say,
Yeah.
oh, according to what you just said, you are mansplaining right now. And then you're saying that females need father figures, aka you think women need men in their life. I
Oh,
don't
I
think
fundamentally do. I fundamentally believe that men that women need men in their lives. My God, yeah, of course, of course.
and
Like
in the
men,
same way that men need women in their lives, man.
100%,
Live
100%.
can't live
But
without them, man.
the key word that we're both floating over here is men and women. Like you need a
Yeah.
man in your life. I need a woman in my life. I don't need an ideologically infected, drama addicted, meme spouting,
But okay,
nonsensical, self-centered, narcissistic wretch in my life. That's a different entity to a woman.
occasionally or especially you gloss over like the idea of like kind of like a spiritual possession. We can like personify these energies, or let's say
Yeah,
personalities, and
yeah,
this type of like reaction seeking narcissistic you know, gaslighting behavior manifests in both men and women.
yeah.
That entity is an ambiguous figure that goes both genders and both sexes. And I genuinely like the way that you look at how this type of behavior, it makes sense to put a face to it, to personify it as like a spiritual possession. You know what I mean?
Okay, we can call it wetico.
What
Yeah, that's what the Native Americans called narcissism, the infection of greed, the infection of materialism, an
really?
ideological infection, or I think Wetico or Wendigo in some tribes. So Wetico. So it's the Wetico possession, and it's pure narcissism. So it's not a person. You're talking to a ghost, somewhere between a ghost and an artificial intelligence program. And it's not that the person has no value, it's that they're infected, if you like the medical model, or possessed, if you
Yeah.
like a spiritual model, and they literally are. So you're now like in the book, less so the film, but the book, The Exorcist. You should read that. There's some fascinating conversations between the priest and the devil, who speaks through the girl who is possessed, about
Yeah.
the nature of reality, good and evil, and all the rest of it. But you're not talking to a person, not really. And this is what I love about narcissism. I get burnt out with narcissism. It transcends racial, cultural, age boundaries. I think I said
Right.
this the last time we were on. You could be dating a 70-year-old woman from Uganda or a 20-year-old guy from Tokyo, and if they're narcissists, they say the same fucking thing, the same words.
Dude, yes. No matter what background you are, the gender it is, if you come across this Wetico spirit, no
Mhm.
matter whatever element you want to substitute, whether it's man, woman, gay, trans, if they're black, white, yellow, purple, whatever else, the
Mhm.
same exact script, the dialogue, even the tonality and the voice. I remember watching that remember that Johnny Depp Amber Heard conversation?
Yeah,
I thought for 2 seconds the way that her voice would inflect, and
yeah,
in terms of like what it is, I was like, this sounds like the same spirit, the same type of possession from the
yeah,
same entity. It was
yeah.
really, really strange, man.
Yeah, yeah. We're at a point now. I think certainly with the pandemic being at where it is, where we probably don't need to keep mincing words and saying, "Well, it's like a spiritual metaphor or it's a medical metaphor." It's the same world. It's the same reality. If you want to call it demons and somebody else wants to call it a personality disorder, it's the same thing. To you, to me, you're still going to suffer the same. So we may as well say it's a possession that needs some sort of exorcism, and the solution has to be so global that it's either a philosophical revival or a religious revival, and they're the same at the level of humanity. It's the same
That's
thing.
true. Yeah.
It doesn't really make a difference. How do we bring men and women back together? Were men and women ever apart, or are we under attack by a spiritual virus, Wetico, the narcissism psychopathy epidemic? Are people obsessed with videos on narcissism online because this thing is spreading around the world like a pandemic and attacking everybody? And we're all going, well, how does it leave you feeling? It leaves me feeling distressed. It leaves me hating members of the opposite sex. It creates hardcore, the worst elements of MGTOW and incel and red pill movements. It creates the hardcore of feminist movements. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're using words here. You mean you're talking about men
who've decided to hate women and women who've decided to hate men because they're wounded. And then people will say, oh, that's patronizing. You're just patronizing them. You're wounded. You're clearly in pain. Pain knows pain. I know you're suffering, but you're attributing the wrong source. You're going, oh, it's all those people over there. And I'm like, yeah, that's how every genocide begins. With that logic, it's those people over the hill that are doing it to us. Let's go get them.
Yeah, man. I mean, it makes more sense, the story archetypes of like vampires and zombies and all of these situations where people get bit and then they act the same exact way. And honestly, from I'm sure all your experiences and mine, man, there is very little variation when it comes to this type of spiritual possession, man. And it feels like as if there's a giant entity that's circulating everybody's spirit. And you know, I agree, the same way that you would call it a mental illness, it transpires. We're just switching a few words around with spiritual possession and whatever else. It's the same exact pattern, the same linearity right there.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the healing process, obviously my background before the psychology was magic and spirituality and, you know, clairvoyance and that kind of thing. And I'm perfectly well aware of what I'm doing with people under the I nearly said under the guise of psychology, but under the name of psychology. These are transcendental experiences I'm leading people through. They're religious practices. I get people to do things 5 times a day. Just so happens to be how many times a day you're supposed to reconnect with God in Islam. It's 5 times a day. I mean, I just take the stuff that I've learned from that world and I'm like, okay, let's apply a psychological framework to this, but let's remember that fundamentally we are spiritual beings having a human experience. That's it.
That's exactly the role of the shaman. I think on paper or whatever else, the role of the shaman is to dive deeply into the opposite realm of human reality, get the information and deal with the chaos of that in order to bring it back into our reality and translate it into a more understandable form for somebody who needs to transform in one way or another. We don't have that role in Western society. And if you do, you have to be really careful because it can be considered a cult. It can be considered all of these particular things. In like, you know, from what if the wrong person just heard what you said and they had a real grudge against you, they could just be like, yo, Richard, this sounds really culty.
Oh, Dr. Grande will probably do a video analyzing what I've just said now. We're speaking of people who've got a fucking chip on their shoulder about me. But yeah, no, I mean, that's going to happen when the book comes out, because the book is half spirituality. It's probably 60% spirituality, 40% psychology. And I just tell it all. My sexual abuse experiences, all my psychic experiences, all my psychedelic, all the drugs, everything. And when that comes out, people are going to attack me for sure. But I'm now like, I'm going, where are we up to in history? How old am I? How many years have I got left on the planet? How bad is this fight? If I get scared that people are going to accuse me of this name, that name, trying to be a cult leader, trying to be a guru, whatever else, I'm failing the test. I'm failing the test. I have to face that and go, yeah, of course you're going to say that I'm courting a cult and that I'm trying to be a guru and everything else. Of course you're going to say that because you're Watiko. You're the other side. the team is not black versus white. It's not men versus women. It's humans versus Watiko. And of course you're going to try and kill anybody that could alleviate people of the huge amount of suffering that they're in.
You know, it's like you see this trope in movies a lot, right? Somebody accidentally opens up a portal to the other realm, but because it got left on accident for too long, or a person doesn't know how to properly close it correctly, too much of that world comes in, and then everybody freaks out because they're scared of it. But only someone that would be experienced with that realm could close it correctly, like the squid that opens up the time to spill out, sort of a thing, right? But yeah, the general public is not aware of that, so you kind of have to go kind of a little bit more.
But that's what I did on Spartan Life Coach, and it started to really fucking make me upset because I wasn't telling the truth. I'm not lying, but there's I'm going, oh, here's 5%. I'm doing exactly what you say. Here's my valve.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I'm going, there's so much more to this story, but I don't want to cause suicide in people who are psychotically attached to me.
So that is exactly the use or the same principles with psychedelic usage, shamanic experiences, and awakening, which is like if you get too much of that information when you are not spiritually ready or consciously ready of those things, people could go crazy. And that's exactly what happens with psychedelics and premature shamanic experiences.
100%. I was looking at the Kabbalah again the other day because somebody said because I'm wearing a red string, I must be following Kabbalah. I got this from a lady who follows the Eastern Orthodox. She's a Christian Eastern Orthodox person. So I was studying Kabbalah, and they were saying that in the Kabbalistic mythology, a good number of people went completely insane. Because there's different levels of understanding Jewish mysticism. You understand at level 1, it's a metaphor, it's psychology. People have accused Freud, rabbis have accused Freud of building his fame by stealing Kabbalistic secrets and turning them into psychology. So superego, ego, and id apparently is based on Kabbalah ideas. But yeah, there's definitely something to that there's like, if you peel back too much too quickly, the effect is not helpful. It's not healing. It's destructive, which I think is what my first acid experiences were. I think that actually damaged me.
But the way that you're explaining this is exactly what psychedelics are and what they do. It's only good if your spiritual body, or if you want to use, let's just say, Western terminology, your psychological state, your philosophical perspective is held and anchored correctly. So then when you take the psychedelics, it opens up the gate. But how much of it? Don't open up too much. You're going to flood your entire being with something that you're just completely not ready. You're going to get murked immediately. You're going to get murked. Dude, Midnight Gospel, that cartoon that you apparently recommended me that I forgot about, then I found it on my own. And I was like, oh, shit.
You're such a fucking stoner. He sends me a voicemail message. He goes, oh, Richard, you need to check out this thing. It's called Midnight Gospel. It's really cool. You're going to love it. And I'm like, Pierre, I recommended that to you a week ago.
I feel like you've done that at one point, but whatever. No gaslighting here. So with that.
Yeah, I definitely have made the same mistake.
Yeah.
I know I have.
Got him. So with that show, though, it's the closest thing that I've actually seen to a real psychedelic experience. Like you don't really you don't see things like the animations, but the sensation you get watching this show is so similar to a heavy dose of psychedelics. And I wanted to recommend this show to my own platform and just on my YouTube, but I realized like, imagine if you were like an 18-year-old, girl and you fucking got the knowledge from this show while you're seeing like these random cartoon deer dogs get smashed with clown heads, getting like manufactured, exploding, and whilst they're talking about the essence of life and letting go to the new realm and shit, like depending on who's watching the show, they're going to get an existential crisis if they're not ready for this. Like that show is really heavy, and if you are not ready and you're not anchored in any way, it could really send you through a lot of trouble, man.
Well, I wanted to recommend particularly episode 3 as the best description of Buddhism I've ever heard.
5, right?
You can't like, I can't.
5?
Is it 5? Oh, 5.
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah, 5.
Yeah.
But because they're talking about hopelessness, I'm like, if I'm not there to describe what that means, people are going to just go into a nihilistic depression.
Even that episode, I feel like I have a fairly good understanding when it comes to Buddhist principles. Even that episode shook me up a bit. Yeah, that was a hard one to get through, man.
Yeah, but that show is touched with something real, and it should be disturbing. A lesson should be disturbing. It's all done as comedy, and the animation is slightly crappy, and it's all ironic and weird. But that's actually episode 5, very, very deep. But understanding. If you've never done that type of deep meditation, which I only did because I was crazy as a kid and I wanted to stop being crazy and I believed that would help me, where they're talking about how you sit with the presence and then you let the presence change you. And I'm going, some of my clients, man, they'd be like, who? What presence? Who is this? Is it the devil? How does it change me? Does it enter me? And I'd be like, oh, fuck, you can't. And that's not patronizing. I just can't just go blur to everybody. It's not responsible. You've got to really, we do have a responsibility to be careful, but that's why I'm happy to leave Spartan Life Coach for a little bit and move to a smaller channel.
This brings me to it.
The door open. Sorry, mate.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear that.
Okay. So, oh my God, this brings me to an example of when I was, I think, 19 or 18, and I was kind of seeing this model. Surprise! She was a really, I love raving and like new age crystals type of thing, like life positive plur type of thing. And she is Buddhist now, of course, right? So she's like, I'm Buddhist now. I was like, okay, cool. You should like come to this like thing, this like Buddhist meeting that we do here. It's like really nice, So then I go there and we're in this group, and we're kind of sitting in a circle, and then we're kind of talking about just life elements and what Buddhism's supposed to be. And she got her own wooden temple thing, a shrine, right? And it's really light. It's really light. Like, we have to look at life through peace and stuff like this. And they asked me like, so what do you think, Pierre? And me being 19, I go, well, according to the key principles of Buddhism, life is initially suffering, and that everything about our life is suffering, and it's only through a detachment where we can understand the illusion, the nature reality. Everybody is like really quiet, and they're really uncomfortable with the situation, and I could see through the main dude leading the teachings, like he agreed, like, yes, but not now, Pierre. So he's kind of keeping quiet and like kind of like shaking his head. But that was a similar thing of like, okay, these are the principles, but there are steps to take to give this information out. And I'm not trying to be patronizing either. I just understand the whole dynamic.
No, I think there's a really straightforward problem, which is that we live inside of the gated community. The walls are high that protect us from the hardship of this world. But that is the story of Buddha. He was raised in a gated community, saw no death, saw no illness, saw only pleasure and fulfillment. And then when he saw the horror outside of normal world, illness, death, suffering, rotting corpses, he experienced his first enlightenment. And so it's not patronizing to say we just don't live in a world where adults are adults. People are immature. It's the truth. They can like it. They can write me snotty emails. They can do fucking immature. The average human being now, the average adult is immature. When people, and I'm so happy we have 10 questions. When people are asking me on my Instagram and YouTube, why can't I get in a relationship? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? I'm like, none of you are adults. You're not an adult. A long-term relationship with another human being can only be done between two adults. All of the problems, all your questions, all your solutions, every permutation of the things that go wrong and everything else, you're lacking adult sovereignty. You are emotionally immature. And I can't say that because people go fucking crazy. But there's plenty of people who can hear that. There's a minority of people like, okay, I get that. I'm not really an adult. Nobody nursed me to adulthood. There was no woman to show me how to be a woman. There's no man to show me how to be a man. There was just people who spunked me out, and then I lived with them. I cohabitated with them, and then they kind of threw me out into the world with vague instructions that conflicted each other, by the way. So no wonder you're not an adult. No wonder, you can't cope. You don't have the faculties to do it. And I think it's okay to say that. I don't think it's patronizing to say, look, you lay a video down saying that life is suffering. Do you want to do the experiment? I'll do it on Spartan Life Coach. You do it on Pierre XO. You want to try?
Well, dude, I don't want to send, because, like, they hear life is suffering and they're already trying to just figure out what anxiety is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You give the info, because here's the thing. For example, like the concept behind life is suffering is that once you accept that being a key principle of humanity, it alleviates the pain that comes with it.
Which is why I have to sit right over somebody's shoulder. So when they watch episode 5 and they're talking about hopelessness, and Duncan Trussell's Nepalese teacher saying to him, like, he was like, what's the ultimate truth? And he just turns to him and says, this is all hopeless. This is all hopeless. It's not to send Duncan Trussell, the protagonist, into a depressive spiral. It's to release him from the effort, because, as they say in the episode, We're like kids playing World of Warcraft who've forgotten that we're playing a game. And we're doubling down on the simulation. We're doubling down on the virtual reality. And we suffer and we suffer and we suffer because we're playing a fake game. The end of suffering, Buddha was kind. He said what the end of suffering was. It's detach from the game, take the headset off, switch the computer off, don't play the game anymore. That's the end of suffering. He didn't just say, oh, you're stuck forever. You're going to, but you have to be tough to end your suffering. You have to be tough to take the headset off and switch the computer off. It hurts. It's difficult. It takes discipline.
But even with that extensive explanation of what that is, I think, I don't want to say the average person, but whoever it might be could still misinterpret that, because you have to really develop through whatever means, whether it be just your life experience or I don't know what the fuck, whatever else it is, to actually get to the bottom of it. The wrong person that hears that life is suffering, either it calls you a misogynist or they just jump off a cliff,
Right. This is the problem with social media. And it's permeated right the way up to our politicians. It's turned us all into cowards, including me. We're all cowards now. We're all looking at the feedback that we're getting on social media. We're hyper vigilant of it. Politicians used to have polls. They don't use polls anymore. They use Twitter. They don't use polls anymore. They use YouTube. They use Instagram comments. We're all cowards now who are flinching away from negative feedback. If I go on YouTube tomorrow and I say it is bad for you to eat dog poo, a proportion of people will hear eat dog poo. And there's nothing I can do about that.
No, they're going to be, Richard, are you calling women dogs?
So what you're saying is you want women to be slaves.
Dude, at this point, man, at this fucking point, dude, my platform has grown so much in the last 2 or 3 weeks, which also includes a bunch of haters that are reaching so far that joke that I just made, I find hilarious, but it's so close to the truth that it makes it even more funny, man. People will do that.
But this is your challenge, and I don't think anybody put this on you. I think that you've put yourself in the position for it, which is in the face of this kind of illogic and hypocrisy. Maybe your role is to offer something back that makes them think and that brings them to a place where they can think at a better level. You could offer them a little bit of reason, a little bit of love, a little bit of unity consciousness. If you just point out something really simple, like, look, the doctrine that you adhere to, that you think is righteous, it's divisive. There's no end in sight. You never bring men and women back together with your doctrine. At least we're trying. At least we believe in that. At least hypothetically. The end goal is unity, is love. Right. Men and women coming back together as we have been for millennia outside of the lies of Wetiko.
Yes, yes. During that whole text exchange, I was making... we talked about archetypes, and I would love to say that I play the fool, which was one of the first things that you told me, like when we our first conversation.
Yeah, I said, "What? I warned you."
So, and then the Native American equivalent is the Heyoka empath. God forbid using the word empath, but for this situation, the Heyoka, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the sacred mirror, and most people, especially the Wetiko, you put a mirror in front of their face and they see nothing, and it freaks them out. They're like, oh, I'm not there, right? So in the way that I combated this slew of insulting messages, she would call me slut-shaming, misogynist, fucking asshole, da-da-da-da-da. And I would just ask her one question. I would be like, is this not what you're doing to me? Sort of just kind of like these one-liner Zen qualms that kind of make her kind of look at what she's doing, and she would freak out and then further contradict what she said before that. One thing she would be like, you're so full of ego and hate. How dare you talk shit to a bunch of strangers? And I'd be like, is that not what you are doing? Or just something like that. And then she'll be like, you're full of ego because you're a YouTuber and an influencer. That's based on ego. And I said, do you have an OnlyFans account? Which is like a a subscription-based site where you post your own nudes, and she did. You know, and at this point, you don't even have to personally attack Tung Fu. The comment says Tung Fu. But at this point, you know, it's unnecessary to even insult somebody personally. There are times where even that's like appropriate, but generally, you can just give 1 or 2 questions in a few words, and then a lot of these wetico, they crumble within their own feet. Like they trip over themselves. It's kind of like the analogy that I was saying, like, you know, they can just swing, 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 and then with one little flick of the wrist, they're punching themselves.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Sorry, I heard you say trip over their own feet.
Yes.
And then you stopped talking.
Oh no, I think you lagged. I'm gonna gaslight you.
Okay.
But they trip over their own feet, so they're like swinging and swinging, swinging, and then you know it's kind of like in those like old Bruce Lee films or whatever, or just action films that you just kind of flick of the wrist and they're punching themselves, and then they're just pissed off.
Yeah, but you haven't chosen what I would consider a worthy opponent there. You're playing with your food.
Sometimes it's fun to throw some food around, you know.
This girl who's I sense the you know, seeing the interaction and having you. I saw you read it out on you now. It's not, there's ideological infection, that there's emotional dysregulation, there's, you know, if you build a house on sand and then somebody starts chipping away at your sand and going, hey, this is sand, you know, you might get a bit cranky about it and be like, could you fuck off with your shovel, please? I don't want to be chipped away at. But bringing it back to the gang violence point, you can see the thin-skinnedness. Like, it's very thin-skinned because it's built on sand. There's no real structure there. You know, if you proclaim yourself a king, but you're not a king. You proclaim yourself a queen, but you're not a queen. You're not even half of one. You're not even half a king. There's nothing here. There's a mirage, and then you start fucking with that mirage, and yeah, you'll get an angry response for sure.
Yeah, I mean, on principle, and the most practical human level, I have every single right to attack her in the same way that she does to me. But
right,
with our experience with, I mean, this is your line of work. You that's the first step that you don't take. That's not what you're supposed to do when, you know, these individuals are trying to entice you into their trap.
Well, when I first started out, I didn't realize how many people who were probably borderline personality disorder were coming to me for coaching, and actually what they wanted to do was argue with me, and that just you know, trying to battle through somebody who I thought wanted coaching in my naivety, but actually they just wanted to argue with somebody. It ended up making me very sick because of the psychological stress that induces. So I just wouldn't. I don't know. Rather read the book.
No, sure. I mean, you've had like way more experience than I have, but for me, you know, I would have been swept up under this wave about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Fuck, maybe a year ago. I don't know. But I think I'm at a point in my own experience that I am aware of the techniques that are being used here, and I know how to properly maneuver around it. Whereas before, I would probably be way more reactionary and like just fight fire with fire, which is the first thing you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, and we've got to be aware as well that there's ego expression in conflict. Apparently, we're both on that mixed Briar scale that likes conflict, that likes debate, and then, you know, so for me, if I can identify that, for me to get in arguments with people, because I can stamp on people in an argument, I just have that skill. And now I'm like, okay, well, just because you can, that doesn't mean that you should.
Yeah.
And it can be an addiction. It gets addictive. Drama is addictive.
So
and that's what social media does. It wires us to conflict and to addiction, which feeds Wetico. It doesn't starve it. And it doesn't, I've run forums since 2006. I've never seen an online flame war that ended with one side going, you know what? I was wrong. in this, and you have taught me something, and we are both now better humans for it. That's maybe once in like 17 years.
Right. I think, yeah, the best way to apply that is as if you ever wanted to join the game, which I don't know why any sane person would. I'm insane, so I do it intentionally sometimes. The best way to look at it is like that episode in Midnight Gospel. Know that you're playing World of Warcraft for this moment. Be aware that you're taking the steps to grind into level 23, getting a few more XP points at this moment. But the moment you forget you're playing the game, your character getting hurt and dying, you're going to be convinced that that's really you.
Yeah.
Your feelings getting hurt or whatever you want to talk about, that's your video game character getting hurt.
Yeah. And that's attachment to form. Maybe I shouldn't say attachment to form. Maybe I should use that lexicon and just be like, oh, you're playing a game and this character that you've dressed up all nice and they have the good spells and the nice bow and arrow that you bought from the elf in the village, and that's you. And then we just smash it and you're attached. That's being attached to form. That's probably a good way of describing attachment to form, actually.
Yeah, the video game example I think is the most practical way to explain these things. I can't think of another one that doesn't personify it clearly enough.
Should we take a couple of calls?
Yes, but I have to go pee.
You can go pee. I permit you. Don't pee in that thing. Okay, folks, I'm going to put the link if you want to join us. I'm putting it in the comments right now. If you want to ask a question, you can ask it now. Make it one sentence long and end in a question mark. That's always helpful. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Kiwi Weller says, wait, you're saying I can't actually turn people into sheep? I've not seen that spell performed thoroughly, but possibly. Serena, you ready to come in? All right. Yes.
So I actually like the topic you guys were talking about, and I have a lot to say about this, even though we might not be able to go on like fully into this because there's like a lot, but I would actually like start.
Okay.
So you guys were talking about teen violence and gangs, right?
Oh yes, yeah.
So I actually have a story about that, especially like at my school and stuff. There was a whole thing going on. We were in class and we heard people fighting outside, and apparently there was this whole gang warfare thing between two gangs, and they decided to do it at school. They actually had weapons and stuff with them. So they were throwing it around, and apparently the police had to be called because apparently students were running with the guns. We were hiding under tables because we were worried something might happen.
Yeah.
And everybody was out. Everybody was trying to look. Some of the teachers even went to hide. So I found that a bit, the fact that our safety was actually being jeopardized in that situation.
Yeah.
But this is a thing that's also very common here in Suriname, especially. At schools, people actually, like, kids sell drugs. They're like probably 16, 17, 15, and they sell cocaine and weed. So, and this is actually like a problematic behavior.
Yeah.
And there's like this whole thing with drama going on. I used to be a part of a group chat, and people in this group were like between the ages of 15 and 26, actually. And they were actually sending pictures to each other, revealing pictures. Like, I thought it would be like and causing drama. I thought it would be like a place where people could like talk about anime and stuff, but it didn't turn out to be that way. And I found it very, very disturbing.
Yeah.
Because these are young children. They don't know what they're getting themselves into. So I'm kind of trying to discuss that also. I'm kind of starting like a YouTube channel where I can have podcasts with some of my friends and the people I know. But so I'm actually like recording on on IG when I have someone on, and then I like edit it and post it there.
You should
So-
have Pierre XO and Richard Grandin on.
Yes, definitely. You guys can join anytime you want, and if you guys want to talk about this. But yeah, these are the situations that I kind of find very saddening.
Yeah, no, it's a real problem. It's worldwide. I don't know if it's true. There was a thing going around a few years ago, allegedly an African proverb, where they said if you don't initiate the children in the tribe, they'll burn the village down just to feel the flames. And I think there is the sense of like if there's not a structure or order given to that chaotic, massive energy of youth, that it will turn destructive. It will become something not useful.
Like I've noticed with these children, like I've talked to them, and like you can like categorize them in different groups or whatever, but there's like a similar theme, like especially like these children who actually end up like in these gangs and stuff, and apparently they're also like children of drug dealers. Like they come in like the fancy cars and shit. If you scratch that car, you're not seeing the light of day. So yeah, it's basically like a certain group of children who actually end up in these gangs.
Raised by narcissistic psychopaths who are totally immature themselves and not qualified to raise children, who've raised another generation of little shits.
But one thing I've also noticed is that they actually taken it from the US itself, like some influence from there.
We all live in
So
America.
Exactly. Like the terms they use and the music they listen to. They're actually rappers trying to talk to children, like using their music to get to them and to get the children to go back to school and not become dropouts and joining these gangs.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a good thing to try to do. Definitely. Rin was saying that she's starting a YouTube channel, and I said that we would go on it.
Awesome. Hey, Rin, can you post the YouTube channel in the chat so then everybody could see it?
Yes. Later after I'm out of here, I'm gonna post the link in the chat so everybody can like subscribe, because I really want to have you guys on, talk with you guys about this stuff. And I'm also gonna try see if I can unite the YouTubers from Suriname itself and the youth so we can actually speak on these issues, because it really breaks my heart seeing these things happen to young children and they don't know what's going on. They just like trying to find their way, but they don't know.
Yeah.
And they're especially these girls, they actually just young people, they don't know these things, and they'll end up like
you're the perfect person. You're the perfect person to lead them and have your voice be heard. I think a lot of people can connect with you, so I believe in you, and I'm here to support. Same here with Richard.
Thank you, Pierre.
Yeah, of course.
And I've also gotten more into the whole spirituality side that you were talking about earlier. I'm trying to like delve into that and see where it takes me, see what I can learn from it, because I'm open to anything and everyone if they want to have a conversation. And I actually try to learn this stuff so I can see how the other person views it, so I can respect it more. Thank you guys for having me on. I will post the link in the chat, and hopefully I can talk to you next time about this.
Good.
So, and by the way, something important.
Good luck.
Most people don't know this. There's a swimmer from Suriname. He actually got a gold medal at the Olympics. And get this, since the stereotype in most of the world is like black people can't swim, this dude is black. He actually made it this far. So who says the stereotype doesn't work technically?
No, it's nonsense. It's
nonsense. It's just bullshit.
It was good seeing you, Rin. Hopefully we'll catch up soon, yeah?
Yeah. Pretendo. Love you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things, swimming, if you want to compete at that level, you really have to have done it since you were a kid. For Olympics, anything, you got to do it since you're 5,
honestly,
right?
I am convinced when it comes to athletics, if you didn't start at 5, you're a little too late. You know what I mean?
For that global level, sure, but that's no reason for you not to go to the gym, get some like traps.
I'm busy.
In that fucking neck.
I can't hear you. My eye is covered.
Hi, Mandy.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Very well.
Hello.
How are you?
Hanging in there. I feel like you guys kind of like ran through my whole 44 years of life. I was the kid that you probably should never have been around by age 9. I was doing coke, making it, distributing, doing all the bad
Damn.
stuff. Only had a mom and a stepdad who actually supplied the coke and his friends. My mom graveyard shift. My dad was a drunk. So I grew up with the mindset of, well, I'll never cower from someone who beats you, but I'll beat the brakes off of you. And that's what I did. I would go toe to toe with my kids' dad at 24 years, 25 years tomorrow, and beat him right back. But that was my level of normal. And that's sad. And I always taught my kids that, you know what, this isn't normal. This is not okay. Don't ever be this way. So hopefully with the next generation coming up, there's more people out there teaching their kids, hey, don't do this, because my boys do face that, oh, it's the man's fault. It's the man's fault. And they're really good men. And they would never lay a hand on a woman. They know to get up when an elderly person, you know, someone older than them walks in the room. They know manners and things like that. But like everything you guys touched on today, like, yeah, very good point. And I'm living proof. All of it's very true. And it does happen that way.
Yeah. It does seem to be the case. If there's no decent father figure in the house, then we all just
I didn't even have a decent mom.
Yeah. We run into criminality. The devil makes work with idle hands, right?
Right? She was a narcissist, and my sister was the golden child. So literally, I was 9, gone all night long, gone for days. She didn't care.
Yeah.
No, everything you touched on, I just want you guys to know you're absolutely right, and that's exactly the way it goes down. And keep doing the good work.
Thank you very much, Mandy. Thanks for coming on.
Good
Yes,
seeing
sir.
you.
Good seeing
Oh, I cut Mandy off there. Sorry, Mandy.
How often does that happen to you? That happened to me yesterday on the phone. I said goodbye, and they're like, "Goodbye." Oh, oops, that was way too soon.
I feel a little rude. That's my codependent, like, guilt and shame.
No, I feel the same, dude. Oops, fuck, my bad.
We with that whole thing about the gangs and the teen violence and in my experience as well, it wasn't just a lack of a father. Like, the mother that I had was frustrated. She was angry. She was emotionally dysregulated. She was drinking too much, and she was probably too young and too emotionally mature to deal with 2 kids. And we got smacked the fuck around. My mother terrorized me. And so it's not just the absent parent. There's also the emotional dysregulation, feeling impotent in the face of my mother. I couldn't stop my mother from beating my sister. So the overcompensatory gesture later in life was,
Oh, you froze again, man.
well, I'm going to be a self-protection instructor. And I'm going to I was my first thing was like teaching women self-defense and being like, okay, so if somebody's going to attack you, this is what you do to them. But it was nasty. It was bad stuff, man. Bad things, blood.
Yeah, but that's just it fits the I keep saying this throughout the stream, the archetypal origin story of hero/villain. You know,
you should keep flying the flag of Jungian archetypes, because I'm so dismissive of it, and it lends like a good, healthy polarity to the discussion.
Yeah, I know. I mean, who would be the one that would be into Jung here if you just saw this frame?
Right.
You know but then,
that's the mystic here.
Yeah, I was gonna say. But yeah, man, that's like the typical pattern of like the origin story of a villain/hero, man. You know, it's like childhood trauma. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get back. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna be stronger than ever.
Yeah,
sort of.
It's that's Adler's thing. I'm reading a lot of Adler at the moment. It's a sense of inferiority that you overcompensate for later in life. It breeds tyrants. It breeds lunatics. It breeds narcissists and psychopaths. Haley, are you ready to come in? Cool. I got the thumbs up. Hey, how you doing?
Hi guys. How are you guys today?
Really good, thank you. How are you?
I am well. It's actually nice today. No snow, no rain, just sun.
Lovely.
So on some of other people's points, I think that a lot of young people, and even people my age, I'm almost 30, feel like we can't actually connect like people used to. So like people want nudes, people want these things that are a breach on ourselves. Like I don't like the thought of sending nudes. It's like I would much rather have the connection with someone in person than just send a picture. And I think that that's kind of lost, and we've lost our way of like actually trying to connect and be introspective with ourselves to find out what we want, because we're also told we should want to send nudes, we should want to be a porn star, we should want to be this Instagram model.
So, stop. You're the woman I want to talk to. Okay, so what you just said, where did you get, sincere question, where do you feel like you as a young woman receive the message you should want to send nudes? Is it overt, is it explicit, where's it come from?
I would say it's not explicit, or at least it wasn't when I was a teenager, because the technology itself was so new. But now I feel like it's such a common thing to hear about, and it's such a common thing to know that people do. And as I've gotten older, like I did it when I was younger, like who hasn't at one point in time, but like as I've gotten older and I've found out what I think is wrong and right, like I'm like, porn isn't healthy. Okay, so I'm not going to contribute to that. I don't think it's helping any relationship I'd ever be in. I think that it just doesn't give you that connection, and it's just a false way of trying to connect with someone when you truly just want to actually connect with them on a soul level, not like a, oh, that's a nice vagina you have kind of level.
But that is a nice compliment. We all like that. I like to know vaginas.
I actually just watched a whole YouTube video about this particular phenomenon. The video is called "The Lonely Fans of OnlyFans." So the OnlyFans website is, you know, people selling their nudes and stuff, the women that do that, and some guys too. But in this video, they interviewed people that would be, let's just say, frequent supporters of different OnlyFans accounts, right? And what was fascinating was that a lot of these, typically men, that are supporting the women on these websites, they don't want to just see nudes, because there's, you know, just porn everywhere for that anyways. They're doing this in the interviews. They say this, that it makes them feel closer to the person, and they're actually speaking, because there's actually a direct message feature on that website too. So by paying the hot model or whatever, they get to have their chance to talk to them, and they're kind of paying for this connection with them. But yeah, that goes exactly what you're saying, Haley, is that our generation has a really big issue connecting. We're trying so hard. And I think me and Richard spoke on this once a few streams ago, that I think Richard's generation over here, they naturally feel really uncomfortable sharing too much on the internet, because they already had real life connection with one another. And it almost seems alien to watch Gen Z and millennials just put their booty out on the screen, plus their inner secrets and how they feel about stuff.
We would never have been satisfied with that. That's the problem. That's what freaks me out. We would have got annoyed and frustrated with that shit. It'd be like, why can't we?
So yeah. So exactly. So nowadays it's normal to do something extremely unnatural. I'm even guilty of this. For example, I don't feel like there's a problem with opening up too much online at all. And now the culture is so within this narrative that I'll meet up with people in real life who tend to be, you know, more closed off with their personal stories or whatever else like that. And they feel guilty for holding that in at times. And they think that they should post more like I do. And I look at them and I say, no. You're actually the normal one. I'm the one that's fucked up, because a normal person shouldn't feel comfortable sharing too much online. So now the whole cultural landscape is saying that is the way to be, when it's actually not normal at all.
But where are you both getting where's the message coming to you both that you should act this way? Okay, let me phrase it this way. Where do you both feel you're getting the message that it's not cool if you don't do it? Who's going to tell you you're not cool?
Dudes pressure you. I mean, and not all guys, maybe just the ones that I've interacted with. They definitely pressure you, or they're like, oh, well, if there's
Haley, you don't need to say not all guys to us. We're not that thin-skinned. We're not going to have a hissy fit and be like, stop that, saying that thing. But is it the girls ever say to you, oh, I sent nudes to this guy and make you feel like, the girls ever make you feel like that's normal? Do they hyper normalize it?
I think on the internet it is hyper normalized. I don't necessarily I don't have any girlfriends that are like, I'm just spamming people with nudes and it's great. That I've never encountered. But I definitely feel like if you're on the internet realm, you see a lot of women, like even Instagram. Like, I do photography, but I don't post pictures of myself. I post pictures of the fucking birds I'm taking photos of, and I don't have many followers because of it, but I refuse to post my ass. I'm like, no, you're gonna like the fucking birds. You're not gonna like my ass. Sorry. Rant.
But this is okay. I might be over psychoanalyzing this, but I have two millennials in front of me. Is it possible that you're no longer taking social cues from people? Because I'm asking you who, like what person? Nobody, no guy, no girl for either of you is really saying.
You know what it is? You know what it is? It's the lack of social cues. It's the lack of real life social cues. So we are the first pioneers of the digital native. I was, I think, literally the first 1,000 that was a digital native. I grew up on a computer since I was 3 years old, sort of a thing. And so we grew up, we were the first generation to really pioneer the lack of intimate, or we were the last generation too, to have intimate real life relationships, some more than others. In my personal life, I had it to a certain degree, but there was definitely something lacking, and I'm sure Haley could relate to that as well.
Yeah, for sure. There's not a lot of in-person connecting, and I'm trying to not connect as much on the internet to people and make friends like in real life, which can be difficult now because most people, like, we're so segmented. And when you talk about real things, it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, or, you know, I feel like the things that you shouldn't talk about are the things that you should talk about the most. But
here's a leading question for you, Haley. If you said to your peers, be they male or female, that your biggest ambition in life was to get married and have kids, I know that it may or may not be, do you think they would respond to that well, or do you think that would make them feel awkward and uncomfortable?
Probably awkward and uncomfortable.
Okay.
Like, I have a friend who just turned 30 and she's been single and she has a great life, but like she has no ambition for that. And a lot of people don't, you know, you're focusing on your career or school or traveling or what have you.
So sorry, just to follow on from that, in the way that we were saying before, like it's not clear how to win at being a man anymore. Like, where do we go? Oh, I'm a man now, fine. Do you feel like you know how to be a woman, where you could go, okay, this is what being okie dokie?
No, I feel like actually being the traditional feminine, like not slutty, not prudish, but like, you know, reserved and classy. Like, I feel like that's looked down upon. Like, I feel like you got to be an Instagram hoe to get anywhere.
Yeah, I could definitely see the narrative. Like, most of this conversation has been about me and Richard talking about men being lost, but I can definitely see a lot of girls, especially young girls, feeling super lost, especially because even now at the age of 13 to 14, they just see these like unrealistic bodies that feel like they're just made of Play-Doh and CGI. And this is their idea of what it means to be a woman. And yeah, you know,
maybe it's not that men have left the field and that maleness and masculinity is being attacked, but maybe it's that all adults have left the field. Like, adulthood is not is what's out of fashion. Being an adult, growing up, and being maybe that's what's gone.
I actually could agree with that, because if Instagram culture and social media and like modern life, less people are having kids, less people are actually growing up, so to speak. So I could see how that would actually cause us to be just children throughout life. And how do we connect as children if we don't know the landscape of adulthood and we're not in adulthood or in that frame of mind? So yeah, I agree with that.
Thank you for your honesty. You've given me a lot to think about. It's going to take me a couple of days to process that. So I don't really have anything to say to you other than thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Just know I'll be thinking about what you said for the next 3 or 4 days for sure.
Oh, awesome.
By the way, I love your clothing choice, Haley. You've come on every time with really cool outfits.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. You do too. I love your jackets. Like, every time I see you, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Okay, we'll talk over here, Richard. See you.
It's a good thing I'm in control of this. Let me let me just end this conversation. Haley, so much for going on. I think Haley's frozen.
Oh, she's frozen.
Oh,
Yo,
Haley, thank you.
why does she look so good frozen? And then when we're frozen, it's like.
And she's just like that.
That was like a perfect portrait shot.
I'm gonna have to give that some thought. There is definitely a strong sense that I've had for a while that like the adults have left the room, but that was more when we were talking about politics, especially with the COVID. Oh shit! I shouldn't have said that word. The fucking corona. That made me really frustrated because I was like, who's in charge? Who's running this fucking thing?
We briefly spoke about this too, but I've said this for a while, is that the language, the dynamics in social media is at the age of 15 to 16 years old. The type of communication, it's purely visual signaling. It's risque, not too revealing or not too repulsive. It's hinting at it. It's either about trolling and being overtly kind of rude and aggressive in YouTube comments. It's reaction seeking. It's a fractured identity, a collective trying to figure out who they are. Drama seeking. The drama genre on YouTube is the biggest community next to beauty. The beauty community is a signifier of adolescent culture. Everything on social media is within the language of a 16, 15-year-old.
You just said something there that made me realize something. I'll probably release this in a lecture and get paid a lot of money for it. You'll see nothing. I'll never credit you. You'll never give you nothing.
This is the melanized struggle, baby. I accepted it, man. I accept my vehicle. This is how it is.
It's exploitation. This is just new level exploitation. You just got to live with it.
It happens. This is how it is. Anyways,
there's no potential for intimacy in a relationship where there's no communication and only signaling. And so that's what nudes are. I don't want communication. I want a signal. So I've said this to you. I've never really, because Gen X, we don't talk about this shit in public, but I told you it was girls were asking me for nudes. And I'm like, what the fuck? What are you going to do with that? Are you going to be off? Are you going to be off right now? If you want a picture of me with no shirt on now, is that because you're going to beat off and give yourself an orgasm now and go asleep whilst we're communicating? I've spoken to you at length about this because it's a thing for me because I'm from a different generation. The timeline for sex is fucked. It's fucked up. So in my day, you met somebody face to face, you started talking, you'd have a laugh with them, you'd hang out with them, and then it would do the American system. We would talk about that in the UK, first base, second base. You would hold hands, then you would kiss, then you'd be dry humping over your clothes, and then it would escalate. Now, and then maybe, I don't know, once you've dated somebody for 3 or 4 months, and then you're not together because you're away with work, somebody would send somebody else a picture. Now it's all like, I would dream. I just wouldn't flip something like intimate picture to somebody that I hadn't been with for less than 6 months for my own safety. Like, what the fuck are they going to do with that? Why are you guys so cavalier? Why is that generation so brave? Like, I would feel like it's beneath my dignity. I'd feel like it's dangerous. I'd just be like, why do you think that's okay to do? But it's the timeline.
Okay, boomer. So let me explain. Okay, so, I mean, part of it is just heavy normalization of it. I mean, it just became to be a normalized thing within the last few years. I mean, even about 7 years, 6, 8 years ago, it was still a really like, oh shit type of thing. But now with the rise of like OnlyFans and half of the shit that you see on Instagram, dude, I hate my explore page. You know why? Because my fucking unbridled, unboundaried male brain can't control my thumb from liking pretty faces.
You have to train Instagram, or Instagram will train you.
And if I show you what my explore page looks like, it's just like the hottest girl.
Let's take a snapshot later. Mine is dogs, watches, and Muay Thai. I don't let Instagram show me anything else, or stand-up comedy.
Oh, mine's too late, dude. I am a new dude. But But yeah, man, it's all about signaling, because I just don't think we grew up with the language of entering anything deeper. You can see this with a lot of American communication with teenagers and adolescents, but out here, I've rarely seen that in Central Europe. So
Because of course my brain goes to solutions a lot, and I'm thinking, well, what's the problem? Let's map the problem, and then let's walk out. Because usually the way out was the way in. So you just turn around and walk right back, but you need to know how you got to where you got. So that to me sounds like it would be beneficial for groups of people to be made to sit in a room and talk to each other with no phone for prolonged lengths of time.
this is what I have always wanted, and I'm sure a lot of people my age and younger want. But where is the medium for that? Where there were times in America and even now that I purposely wanted to work some bullshit minimum wage job because it was the only social facility that allowed that. Like there were times in California, I was like, how do I make friends and how do I be around people to communicate? And every single time the answer was a job. And now, even now, I was thinking about taking makeup classes or just taking whatever, just so I could be put in a setting where conversation was forced or inevitable, sort of a thing. However, other than the situation of either like university or just some job or shitty job, because like you can't really talk much in the corporate setting or whatever, those are the only routes to be surrounded by other people that you're forced to communicate.
Oh, let's be coffee baristas in Prague for 3 months and document what happens.
Honestly, like even you said that, I was like, that kind of sounds fun, man. And I was thought about like the idea of a bartender or some shit. Just and the thing is like it's weird now because I don't need it.
But you do, but not for the money. You need it for the serotonin, for the dopamine to connect with other humans. And I know what you're saying. I hear you for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, where else do you just find that? I mean, literally, out of all the friends that I've met out here, I just did it because I just figured out how to meet strangers right.
Yeah, it's there's so much that I need to process on that to think it through. Where you just bring people back to each other, but bringing men back to women, women back to men, and just people back to people seems critical. But before the Roni, my whole thing was going to be about community building. I was going to do more meetups. I was going to train meetups. Huh? Bachata, baby. Bachata.
Yo, dude, you were telling me you got a sign from the heavens that you were supposed to be a dance teacher or some shit, and maybe that's
it was the ayahuasca spirit. She told me I have to teach people to dance. But that was the thing I was going to say before. Looping back to young men, they don't just need to learn how to fight; they need to learn how to dance, because there's a thing, a payoff that boys will get that I've gotten if you go to a place where people are dancing. So you train and it's hard and it takes discipline and it's scary and you're nervous. Then you go ask a girl to dance in a place where girls know how to dance, and then you do a dance and it's good. That's better than winning a Muay Thai fight. That's definitely better than stabbing your enemy.
And it's actually
babies. It's the opposite.
Nowadays, that's 10 times more practical. To learn to dance well, it's actually more practical in the modern world of today, because nowadays it's not that violent where you need to do Muay Thai and fight burglars or whatever the hell. When I was, I've danced for most of my life, and I did some martial arts back then, but I remember one day I had the thought when I was either trying to throw a kick or some shit, or I watched the video of me dancing and I try to combine the two. Martial arts is the masculine version of dance. It's the same type of thing. One is just combative, and you can actually have physical pain from it. I think fighting in martial arts is just the masculine version, because what do you do in bachata? You have physical contact with somebody. You're kind of swinging them around, except now it's the harmonious version without the impact. And then martial arts, kung fu, boxing, it's the same thing with impact.
Yeah, in martial arts, you're dancing and practicing to be a protector. In bachata, you are the protector the entire time you're dancing. That's your job. You're not in bachata. You as a man, as the leader, we don't really dance. We're not supposed to be pretty. we provide the frame so that the girl can be beautiful, so that she can look great, and we protect her so that nobody else on the dance floor is going to accidentally flop into her. So there's an immediacy to the symbology of it. Martial arts has relevance, but it's much longer. The immediacy is much further away. Bachata's now. You're doing it right fucking now. You're not practicing for some other symbolic event. You're practicing to do this, and you're either dancing well and she's smiling and happy, or you're fucking it up. She's not, and that's it. It's a win-lose scenario. It's great.
The way that when you're saying that, I'm envisioning. So in bachata, now let's just start with when you're fighting, right? When you're fighting, you're producing force and giving pain.
Yeah.
Right. In bachata, you are consistently saving somebody. Like right when they're about to get hit, it gets weaved out. You know, it's the lack of impact. It's saving. It's moving with. While martial arts and fighting is about giving the impact, and it's all force.
Yes, yeah, it's that, and also in bachata, you would lead the lady into doing things that are dangerous. So, which she wants to do. She wants to spin, because when she spins, the hair flows out, the clothes flow out, and she looks beautiful. So you lead her into danger and you save her. You lead her into danger and you save her, which there's a kind of there's a romantic element to that you're pushing the boundaries. And every time there's a real release, there's a real psychological release with that, because if you're good at leading her into danger, but you're even better at saving her, there's like a rapport that builds like that. It's really, really immediate, and it's really, really strong.
Yeah, that's a thing that I've heard Jordan Peterson say. When we see something done really well and is amazing, it's usually the symbology of entering chaos almost as far as you can go, and then bring in order immediately. So what you're describing of like you're kind of throwing her around and then swoops perfectly back into position. Same thing. Same thing as a skateboarder doing a 360 flip off a set there.
Yeah. Very similar.
Catch, land, and it's almost as if nothing happened, sort of a thing.
Right. So that it's a moment, and the moment is delicate, it's intense, it's beautiful, and it's gone. And that's what makes it special. It's got to go. It can't be, you don't hold it. It's intense, it's delicate, it's special, and then it's gone. It's just completely gone. And that's part of the thrill of it.
And you know what's in the middle of martial art and dance?
What? Fingers? A round finger and a long finger? What's in what is that? Mudras of the dimensions. Carly, are you ready to rescue me?
Much. Hello. I'm sorry. I'm just happy that you just basically said dance. Really,
yeah.
Anyway, hello.
Tentacle question.
Take me back to King and I and doing the dancing like that. If a man come up to me and said dance, I would love to, but you don't get the dancing like they used to anymore. It's all shaking it and everything like that.
You got to go to bachata. It's really good. It's really good.
I wouldn't know. I've only ever been with one person in my life that didn't go well because, as you know, narcissism, all that lot. But you know, never say never. But I'm happy being by myself.
Yeah.
Much more happy. But so let me get my train of thought. Basically,
we just
hearing about the teenagers and things like that. Just give me time. But I've kind of listened, like when you're saying the masculinity and like the mum and the dad. With people that I had growing up, it was more about family. So when you got into that group, you felt like family. Mm-hmm. So my role in the group, which were all boys, just my sisters, was to be nagging mum. Mm-hmm. Like, don't do that, that's dangerous, or don't do this is dangerous. And they're like, okay, Carly. And then it'll be like for them to protect me. But as I've got older and things like that, things change. We all grew apart. But one guy that we knew basically came back to the park that we hanged around to try and find us. Mm-hmm. And he's in gangs and things like that. So to me, it's not just about, we're looking for the father figure, the mother figure. I mean, it is in that way, but we're just looking to belong. Mm. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it's a big part of it. It's looking to belong.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that's how I see it. But it's just sort of like listening to it, like with all the gangs and everything going around, it's easy for someone to come up to a young child or teenager and say, you know what, here's this job, I'm going to pay you 20 quid, go and knock on someone's door because they've not paid their money, get the money from them. And with that, they feel like, oh, I feel like I belong, I feel like I'm an adult, which what they don't realise is that basically they're just being used.
Yeah.
It
Sounds like the military. You're being given a place and you get used. Just run up to the house and pop the grenade through the door, please.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the same basically country, Richard. So you would know basically more of gangs and things like that. But what I've noticed, I've always kept myself to myself. But seeing friends that I've knew, like going all different places and things like that, I've always not stepped out of like the comfort zone. I've always stayed in my comfort zone, feeling that, okay, I'm going to be protected, I'm going to be shielded. And then when I got into a relationship with the person I got into a relationship with, thinking I'm going to be safe, it weren't like that at all.
Yeah.
And I always find that basically with me, like, as you said, with codependent, that you tend to want to save people, but you can't. You have to save yourself. And it's just basically interesting listening to you guys. I've listened to your videos, Richard, and they've helped me out a lot.
Good.
I've listened to you, Pierre, and your videos, they make me laugh. I enjoy them and that. And, the way you are, and you just remind me of someone that's so bubbly and happy. And Richard, you're not very bitter and things like that. There's a cheeky side to you, and I can see that. And a nice side. And I can see that, even though you think, right, I put on the shield, it's there, but only for a few certain amount of people.
Right.
So, but yeah, but it's interesting. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Carly.
No, that's okay. That's no problem. Yeah, I will be doing basically my own YouTube soon, but it'll be sort of card readings. I don't know what you guys think of that. If you believe in them sort of things, because I'm very sort of spiritual.
We both read cards.
Yeah. You both read cards. What kind of cards, Richard?
The tarot, the row cards.
Oh, I just basically do the oracle ones.
Yeah, I just shuffle these. I can't read. I can't even count.
Well, I have to do a reading for you both, maybe one day, but yeah.
Yeah, that'd
but
be
I
awesome.
just wanted to come on and just basically thank you guys, and what you guys do is excellent.
Thank you.
Just keep doing what you're doing and speaking your truth.
Thank you, Carly.
Yeah, that's all. But that's all I've got to say.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you guys take care. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Very cool. Very cool.
What she was saying, the child getting the money or whatever, and the kid feels like they have a purpose. I think everybody needs like a responsibility and a role, especially children. Just they need to know what their positioning is.
That's what I used to do with the naughtiest kid in the class when I go into a school. They'd be like, "Oh, watch out for him because he's from this and this family and he's always done this." And I would just give the little fucker a role, and I would just be like, "Listen,
role, man.
Listen, you're just." If I always found with teenagers, I don't know about younger than teenagers, but you treat them the way you want to act. So if you want a room full of responsible, intellectually curious young adults, that's who you speak to. If you want a bunch of fucking naughty, pain in the ass toddlers, then speak to them like that. But just give people roles. That's it's such a good way of being seen, feeling like you're contributing, feeling like you're part of the tribe. It does so many things in just one action, doesn't it? It shows trust as well.
Maybe that's why everything's so crazy right now. There are no roles for adults and children. There's no fucking roles anymore. This shit just exploded. No one knows what their position is anymore.
Yeah. I know what my position is.
What, doggy?
Intergalactic space squid.
Oh, okay. I thought it was...
Chlorinated. I can't read the next bit. How are you doing?
Chicken. Chlorinated
Hello.
chicken.
Sorry, I can't see it. How are you?
Very well, thanks. This is such an interesting topic today, but I don't really know what to which bit to tackle because I've got so much to say. So I'll just I'll pick one thing. Can you guys hear
Start
me?
with the most controversial thing always.
Oh, I don't have anything controversial. Well, actually, maybe I do. Okay, let's talk about the thing that you guys picked up on with the previous caller. I forget her name, but she was the girl in the really nice sundress. But she was talking about how, I think she picked up on how it feels like women don't know how to be, like we don't know how to be women just as much as men maybe don't know how to be men. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, I don't know, maybe it's my own YouTube feed or something, but there's this like explosion of YouTube videos and channels that are all about teaching women to be feminine. I don't know if you've noticed that. And there's like you haven't noticed, maybe you're guys, so maybe that's why. But there's these ladies, all different kinds, like women in Europe, women in America, and it's like really basic tips on how to be feminine and also how to attract a masculine man. And initially I thought maybe it's like a reaction to like MGTOW and all that stuff, but I don't think it is. I think genuinely
that's a reaction to MGTOW. Sounds like something.
I think there's something where girls feel like there isn't a positive femininity that's pushed, where it's like, okay, actually it's okay to be soft and to be gentle and to have these qualities, and that they can be a source of strength and you don't have to fight it. And for me, again, this might be controversial, I just feel like with feminism, and this is where I always get into arguments with my cousin who's a proper radical feminist, is I feel like feminism tells me what I'm not, but it doesn't really tell me what I ought to be or what I should aspire to be, what kind of woman I should be.
Problems with no solutions, right?
Yeah, and it feels like it's kind of like the whole thing is based around saying, oh, okay, the old woman of yesteryear was like this, so we need to tear it all down and we need to be the opposite of that. And it feels like we're modeling ourselves after men or what we perceive to be men. Yeah. And I don't want to be a man. Like I think men are great.
Sorry to interject there. This is Sam Backman's observation. I think it's absolutely bang on the money. Not just men, nasty men, chauvinist men. So you got women who are like, they're macho, they're drinking, they're fucking everything they can, they're like wrestling, and you're like, ooh, that's not good.
I mean, to be fair, your position on this is becoming way less controversial. I've seen a lot of girls, young women, that are siding with you now, saying that I feel like I just don't have a position in the modern day stereotypical feminist situation. And I think what the problem is that this narrative pushes every single girl to become like that macho-ish figure when it comes really unnatural to a lot of girls like yourself, right? I mean, you don't feel comfortable like being that Chad, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And you know how you were saying, I think you were asking the previous caller, you were saying, who is the person that's bullying you into showing your nudes or doing all this stuff? I don't think it's that we're being pushed to be that kind of person. It's more that the alternative is being demonized. So women who are like traditional and who are like, for example, there was this YouTube channel, I remember they were getting slated, called Girl Defined, and it's these two really like religious Christian girls who are basically dishing out advice, not to everyone, but to basically girls who are exactly like them, who want to wait till marriage and all that. And I just couldn't for the life of me like understand why people who clearly weren't the audience were targeting these girls. And like, don't get me wrong, they could be a bit obnoxious sometimes, but I just thought, but you're not the audience, so why do you care like what they're saying? And it's almost like there's this, it gets under people's skin, this form of this type of a woman, like who's super like girly and doesn't want to swear and is really particular. And then I think also there's this shaming of women who are like that, where it's like, you have to, you know, the same way you were saying men have to straddle this really thin line between being either a complete like psychopath, narcissist, or they have to be like super feminine and soft. I feel like with women, it's similar. It's like, if you're too traditional, all the boys will think you're boring and like you're not, you're probably inexperienced and you're not sexy enough. So it's almost like you're infantilized. But then if you go too far the other way, yeah, you get to be a modern woman, but it's like you're still degraded as well, but just behind your back this time. Like even these women who are on what's it called, that site you talked about, OnlyFans, like on the one hand there's a group that are saying, oh yeah, they're so great, they're so empowered, it's their body, they're making money off of it, why not? But equally there's loads of people who are always going to look down on these women. Like even if they don't say it out loud, it's like it comes through in their language and how they speak about them. And if they're upset with them, it comes out like, oh well, you know, at least I don't do this and this. And do you know what I mean? I feel like I've gone on a tangent.
No, you're making really, really good points. And I'm trying to formulate the perspective here. But what I think is happening, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, because both sides seem to be going under a same situation. I think what's happening is that the loudest minority of each gender is so incredibly loud that a lot of people will end up dealing with them or in relationships or whatever, right? And then these loud, wedico, narcissistic embodiments of each gender become our vision for the entire gender. So now these types of individuals have skewed every perspective when it comes to masculinity, or men and women as a whole on both ends.
I agree.
No, I agree.
You've also given me a lot to think about, Mrs. Chicken.
Thank you very much.
I'll think about it and say something useful next week. But if I was trying to say something useful now, I'd just be bluffing.
Do you think I'll have time to talk about my second thing, or shall we let somebody else on?
You can. You've got me thinking. So I'll sit here feigning consciousness while you talk about your second.
Okay, thank you. This is about the violent youth thingy part of the conversation. I've been reading this book called People Like Us, What It Takes to Make It in Modern Britain. And it's by a guy called Hashi Mohammed. And he's like a Somali refugee. And he came to the UK when he was like, have you read it?
I lived in a Somalian area in Bermondsey, so I have a sense of where this story is about to go.
Oh, okay. No, but he basically, he came to the country, I think when he was 9, and now he's like a 30-year-old, like, and he's one of the youngest like barristers in the UK. But it's like it's like a top barrister position. I forget what it is. It's like really special, but I've like really minimized it. But
it's awesome. He's like a super barrister.
He's amazing. He's a super barrister. Yeah. But it was really interesting because in the book, I haven't finished it yet, but in the book he talked about how when he first came to the country, he was in like a really failing school, and the teacher during the summer holidays, it's like she instinctively knew like all these boys, they're just going to end up basically doing nothing for the summer holidays. So she said, guys, I'm going to make a project. We want to redo the classroom. So she went to like IKEA and she bought like paint and stuff out of her own pocket. And she like convinced the school to keep it open for that classroom. And the boys, they came in and like they fixed up the class and they painted everything. And then he was just remarking on like that sense of fear, that sense of not fear, pride that they felt when they walked into the classroom on the first day in September, and he was just saying how that teacher basically saved them from a summer of doing nothing and probably getting up to no good. And it just made me think about, because I work with young people with special needs. And my favorite cohort to work with are like teenage boys, basically, because they're really funny. And like, you can tell, like, they're usually the type that get written off. and it's really nice to sort of get under realize that actually
where do you work?
So I'm currently in the Middle East, but I used to work in London.
Whereabouts in London way?
East London.
East London. Okay.
Yeah.
So did that song by Big Shaq, "Man's Not Hot"? Do you remember that from a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I do.
That lad, Michael Dapper, I don't know if you ever followed up his YouTube channel. He's a comedian, but if you want that condensed, because it is a funny, it's a violent culture. Like we're talking about the violence of that culture, but the comedy that comes out of that culture is good. That's a funny culture. He, if you want to sort of reconnect with it, because I used to teach around London as well. And it's like going back in time, just seeing his skits and his little like, he does and all that. And he's what I don't know if people outside of England know what Big Shaq is a piss take of these roadmen that we were talking about in Blue Story, the gangs, but he mocks the gangs from inside of the culture itself. And that's why it's so good. And I think that's why Man's Not Hot did so well. Even though I'm sure people in Brazil couldn't have had a fucking clue what he was mocking, but it was something to it that was funny.
Yeah, it's like the irony of it. And I just, so working in that community, it made me realize like a lot of these kids, it's so heartbreaking when you see how the system works and how you can have this young boy. You can see it from primary school. Like I can tell the kids that are going to get into trouble later on because they've got some kind of underlying need, but it's like an invisible disability, like a language disorder or something. And you know what's going to happen. They're going to go to secondary school. The teacher's overworked. There's too many kids in the class. They're going to fall out of love with education because they feel dumb. Then they're going to end up falling into other things that give them that feeling of belonging and like, oh, I'm good at this. And then it's awful. Like my worst feeling would be like when the kids would go off to secondary school and I'd just be like, you're going to get into trouble. No, like you're going to be labeled naughty.
You need to watch Blue Story.
I watched it. I watched it. It was really good.
Yeah. So to go on what you're saying here, I find that story really interesting because you're saying a group of, was it teenage boys that helped build the classroom?
I think it was just before they went off to secondary. So they were 11 years old.
Okay, interesting. So I think this, first of all, is a human thing. We need a purpose and we need to feel like we have a role and we're actually making a difference. But specifically with a lot of like younger men in general and men in general, we feel, I would say most guys feel most happy when they feel like they actually have a use, when they're being useful.
Yeah.
So on paper, you would think that a lot of younger boys are just like, oh, they're just lazy and they just want to fuck around all day, whatever else. But here you go, you give them the opportunity to actually be useful, to learn to use their hands and use their physicality, and then transmute that aggression that's a part of them into building something and then having an end product. And I think for a lot of guys in general, whether most young guys especially, it channels a lot of that masculinity into something that is ultimately really fulfilling and rewarding for a young man. And I think that's what's missing in terms of a lot of younger guys. And what I see as a substitute for that nowadays comes out as video games. Like when they play Call of Duty and Fortnite, it's their teamwork. It's their way to build things. Fortnite is literally a shooter game where you build a bunch of stuff while you're shooting, which is like quintessentially what teenage boys want to do. They want to feel useful. They use their hands, they build stuff, and they shoot things, and they work as a team. But I think nowadays there's very little situations like that classroom that you're talking about that allows them to feel like they're actually being useful.
For sure.
Yeah,
all right, I've taken enough of your time. Thank you so much.
Oh, you were lovely. You should come back. Everyone loved you in the chat.
Did they? Thank you.
All
right then. Bye, guys.
Do you want to see the sun set?
Yes. Were you good at Call of Duty?
Am I good at Call of Duty?
Oh, is that a challenge?
You don't want to fuck with me, son.
Oh, that's
no, only zombies. Only zombies. You know, if you play the game where you're playing against other humans, I suck.
Oh, okay.
I suck. I'm terrible. But zombies, oh my days! Yeah, I have the skill set.
When they're blind and brainless and slow, that's when you're the best.
Of course. What do you think? I want a fair fight? Jesus.
Oh wow,
you
that's
see
beautiful, man.
Is it pretty?
It's kind of blown out, but it looks good. Oh, look at the people. They're not social distancing. Snitch on them. Snitch.
I'm so tempted to shout down to them.
I'm
Report you.
I'm calling the police right now, man.
Calling the Fjorka. Seriously, let's not get into that shit. Okay, we got another 2 callers. Should we take them and then call it a night?
Let's go, brother.
Erinid.
Hi.
Hey, what's up? How you doing, Erinid?
Good. Nice to see you again, Pierre.
What's up?
You know, I'm starting to get used to your braids. I was like, I like the long hair, but I like the braids too. So it's like
It grows on you.
I'm getting it done next week, mate.
Yeah, Richard's getting it next.
Oh shit. Richard, let's see you like either in long Viking dreads or you could do the same braids. We'll talk about it later.
Let's discuss the possible negative consequences of me going down.
No, I think it'd be pretty badass. Sorry, yeah. But I kind of wanted to touch on a few topics here because I feel like I would have a unique perspective on what you guys were talking about. This is only something that I've shared. I've shared it in the Amino, like with a few people, but I'm going to share this publicly now. So I'm basically canceling myself. But I used to be a cam girl, like full on naked, doing shit in front of the camera, cam girl, right? Cam whore, whatever name you want to put. Even before that, I had done nude modeling. Especially for my friend, one of my best friends. He's an artist. He's really good. I'll blast his Insta here so he can get some clout. But I did some nude modeling for him. So he can at least get a figure of what he was drawing. And so I became comfortable with my own body because for the longest time, I was very, very uncomfortable with my body, not because that I think I'm sad or whatever, but just because it's just like, even at a young age, I got unwanted male attention, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's just like I developed early, and when I was like maybe probably 9 years old or so, I was just like, oh yeah, I want big boobs and I want a big butt, because it's like when you're a little girl, and I'm sure like a lot of millennial or just little girls in general, at least like in the millennial and Gen Z type of generations, like they're all gonna want the same thing. They're like, yeah, I want to be grown, I want to be sexy, because they see that on TV, they see that what's portrayed in the media. But from what I've learned, just over the years doing everything I've been doing, I have learned that type of audience, that cam girling, and now OnlyFans didn't exist back then, but it attracts a very, very chaotic, toxic type of person, because those type of people that are in OnlyFans or that pretty much pay.
Are you saying the girls or the followers?
Both, but I'm talking specifically about the followers and the fans. They're very chaotic people. They're usually lonely. Surprisingly enough, most of them are actually older men than they are younger men from. And when I say older men, I mean anywhere between like 35 to 60, that age range.
Why did you say that's surprising?
What do you mean? Well, because a lot of how like making fun of simps is like the in thing now. So usually when someone thinks of a simp, they usually think of like a college age guy or like some millennial type of dude, right? They're like, oh yeah, he's like giving his life savings, and that's even what's portrayed in the media. But from what I've seen, and from what I've personally experienced, it's usually like an older age range rather than just like the millennials. What else?
I dated a model and it was only ever old guys.
Right? Like that, but that's because those are the people that have the money. Those are the people that are going to pay big bucks just to see a girl shake her ass in front of the camera, or just to see her flash her, her naughty bits and, in front of the camera. And personally, I think it's pretty pathetic. I mean, why are you going to pay for pussy? Like, if you can't even get pussy, like, why? Like, you have to pay for it. I'm sorry, but that's just fucking pathetic. But I digress. I guess I would have a lot of controversial opinions on things that you guys are talking about. Not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous, and that's why I'm holding a jar of selenite to kind of just calm me down. A jar of selenite crystals.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so I guess that's my view on that in particular. I mean, I have a few other things that I would touch on, but I mean, I don't really know where to begin or verbalize it.
Okay.
You guys, yeah. If you have any questions to kind of help me out here, just because I'm drawing a blank.
But what
I don't. Go on, Pierre.
What exactly are you trying to figure out here? I mean, I think you try like a perspective on that other guy's end, or like what is it that it's kind of like you're confused about here? Like,
well, I'm not really confused. I'm just mainly just trying to articulate my thoughts because they're kind of all over the place right now. Oh, I wanted to touch on the that girl with the, that was really pretty with the yellow dress. I did want to touch on something that she said, and I just remembered, how Richard was saying, who is bullying you into sending nudes? And this is before and after my camming experience. Yes, there are people on the internet that like will message you, or when you're an attractive female on the internet, or just a female in general on the internet who is even moderately attractive, you're gonna get messages from perverts of all ages. And this is particularly, I've noticed that they're kind of like in Middle Europe and the Middle East and India for some reason, that they send these messages. But you'll get a lot of people messaging you like, oh, send nudes, BB, like, and then there's the meme of like send pics of balls, vagine, and fet, or whatever the fuck, I don't know. And it's just like but in general, like no one is bullying these girls into sending nudes. It's just more of like the fact that female sexuality has been so warped that it's almost like culturally expected for us to want to be forthcoming of our own sexuality. And I was a victim of this myself for the longest time.
So okay, so you're saying you don't do it anymore, or this was just something in your past? And
well, I don't do it anymore, but this is something that I've observed, especially like over,
right.
Especially now that technology for this type of stuff has developed more over the years. Like back then, we only had like
right. So do you have like more of a negative take of it now that you're out of it, or do you think you're pretty neutral with it, or how do you feel about that whole thing?
Here's how I feel now that Instagram thoughts are kind of a thing now, and Twitch thoughts, they weren't too much of a thing back then, but now how I feel is, one, I respect the hustle. Like, listen, girl, use what you got and get money while you still have it. Okay. So it doesn't matter if it's fake or not. I respect the hustle. Use what you got. And these girls, it's like, it's genius. It's like they use what they know they have. They know they're attractive, whether they're faking it or not, and they make money. It's just like, hello, why aren't more people doing this? Like, if I think about it in a very entrepreneurial perspective, so I'm just like, why aren't more people doing this? So there's that, and I understand. I don't agree with the whole self-respect type of thing, because I think it all just comes down to knowing yourself, and knowing what you want out of life, knowing what you want out of a relationship, etc. But that's why I was saying that a lot of the type of energy that that type of field attracts, whether you're the provider of the service, aka the thoughts, or if you are the audience, that both are very chaotic. They're probably very lonely, probably suffer from a lot of severe mental illness like depression or schizophrenia or whatever, because I've noticed that this is just a common pattern. And a lot of them, especially the girls, I noticed that they have daddy issues. And so what I've noticed, not just being active in, the social political community, but also just in general, if you're wanting to break down a society, you start with the family unit. So, and I like what Richard was talking about, like with men needing women and women needing men. From my personal experience, unfortunately, a lot of the men in my life thus far, my father has vastly improved on this, but a lot of the men in my life, when I was growing up and even until recently, like around my early to mid 20s, they've been what I would consider weak. They were weak men. And when I say weak men, I mean either men that were abusive.
Do you like weak men?
No, I don't. I think
you drastically find yourself hating weak men?
I just hate weakness in general, even in women, and I'll touch on that in a bit. But just
you won't have a bit.
I mean, I'm gonna try to hurry up because I gotta go anyway in a bit. But
I know there's a particular thing there. Of what I'm hearing is, and I'm not psychoanalyzing you. It's not the appropriate place. But it sounded like real frustration, real frustration and anger, which I can totally understand, because if you feel like somebody's abrogating their role and their responsibility, chaos ensues and there is destruction. I mean, it's bad if like you say, what you say, I hate weak men, I hate weak women. I think people are going to hear that and think you just have no compassion, you have no kindness. But what I'm hearing is you've been hurt by the fact that people just didn't do their jobs and they let you down.
Yeah, like plenty of men, even recently, like some friends that I've been, I'm not going to say any names, but they've really let me down. I mean, there was even recently there was a female, because I am bisexual, so I've been in relationships with both men and women, and I've been attracted to and had crushes on both men and women, and been heartbroken by both men and women. So I feel like I kind of have, I feel like I have my both feet.
Yeah,
I
think we can all relate. We can all relate. We're both equally sick of both men and women currently.
Exactly. Humans suck. Humans suck in general. Just humans suck.
Sorry, Erin, are you actually right now feeling a little bit heartbroken?
Me? Well, I mean, I'm healing from it. I was very heartbroken by someone that I really cared about. And
how long ago was that?
Oh, this is recent, like in the past 2 weeks.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
You seem like, it sounds like you're in a lot of pain at the moment. It sounds like you're really bad.
Like I said, I am healing from it. There was another girl who had like lighter hair, but she said that she does tarot and everything. I do tarot. I'm also a practicing witch. So a lot of, being into my practice and, just being into everything that I'm doing, it's actually helping me quite a bit. And it makes me at peace. So that has been a huge part of the healing process, just letting go of all these blockages in my life, and they have unleashed new opportunities for me.
That's good. That's really, really good. I hope the grieving process that you're in right now passes rapidly. I really do.
Oh, I believe it will.
It was good to finally talk again and again, Erin. I haven't talked to you. I've only briefly talked to you for about like 30 seconds before, right?
Yeah, I'm no longer in the home planet Amino. So if you want to message me, Pierre, or talk to me, you can do so on Instagram. I'm a pretty private person when it comes to those things. So
yeah, well, sounds good, Erin. It was good seeing you again.
All right, good seeing you too. Keep up the good work. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.
Sorry, I actually have an epiphany with this cam girl nude OnlyFans thing. You ready?
I thought you were going to say, I need a wee. And I was like, what an English expression you were going to use for urinating.
You ready?
Go, give me your epiphany.
So everything is instant download, whether it comes Netflix movies, Spotify music, Amazon package to your door, that we are shortcutting every single element in our lives, like you were saying, right? So we just go directly to flip or directly to nudes. Now, I think in a position like a cam girl or whatever like that, during this Lonely Fans of OnlyFans YouTube video, they literally mentioned that one girl makes $50,000 a month just from selling nudes. On average, the girls were saying I make $10,000 a month. The lowest that I heard was about $8,000 a month. Now, if that is an option for you, where your workload and labor is to take off your clothes and post a picture 3 times a week and get paid 100 times more than the average individual, why wouldn't you take that option? And on top of that, you also get your attention bar fulfilled as well. So you not only will you get a bunch of money from it, you get rewarded socially by having the constant validation that you are an attractive person and you're worth talking to, and all of those elements.
I don't care. I'll give you a bloody reason. Because it's wrong. It's just wrong. And it's bad. And it's sinful, Pierre. These bloody postmodernists have got you thinking there's no right and wrong. And there is. There's a right, there's a wrong. Bloody.
Mr. Peterson here. I don't think that you are getting my point. I'm not saying it's not a matter of morality, but rather practicality. So what you're saying, you're putting words in my mouth. It has nothing to do with good or bad. I'm just looking at the practical applications.
I think that there sincerely is a moral element to this, and I could sit happily with any young person and probably not talk them out of it, but give them something to think about inside of about half an hour of chat as to why that road is not one to go down. That shit ain't free.
I'm not advocating for it, but if you do want to do it, it's your own life. And I am the furthest thing from a slut shamer because I am the biggest slut that I know. So
I don't even know what a slut shamer is. I don't know what that language means.
If I'm gonna be shaming anyone for anything, the last thing I'd shame them for is for being a slut, bruh. Anyways, so with this, what are you gonna say?
Sell drugs and make money. There's all kinds of stuff we can do to make money, but nothing is free.
Listen to this, right? Imagine if you even had your, let's just say, dream position that I was fortunate enough to have, being a YouTuber, right? I still have to spend my entire week filming the video, researching the video, editing it beyond like belief, and then dealing with the trolls, dealing with this and doing this and this, and then upload it like I did today for the last 7 hours, re-uploading the same video only to get it demonetized, trying to switch out different titles and shit. And then after it gets uploaded, it still could be demonetized. And then after that, being called a misogynist, a man hater for no reason because it has nothing to do with the video. And your paycheck is not as big as you think. It's literally a tiny percentage of what you think it is. Or if that's your dream situation, the other opportunity is to put way less labor. I mean, you can argue with this, but I think that taking off your clothes and taking a selfie in the mirror is a little less labor than what I just described there. And then make 3 years of income within a month. And with the state of the economy at this point, especially for a young millennial and college loans and all these other medical bills or whatever the fuck you want to call it, you tie those factors in. What opportunity, what choice would you take in the most practical sense?
I've made my choices, darling.
You gonna post nudes?
No, I think to that point and to the last lady who was on, Erinid, she said it's entrepreneurialism. I disagree. I've heard the same patter from drug dealers, friends of mine, and they claim it's entrepreneurialism and it's hard and they need to know mathematics and it's a lot of work. And I'm like, yeah, but okay. Everybody's free to do what they want. I'm not going to sit here and wag my finger at anybody, but it ain't free. It ain't free.
The price of it is the social stigma buzzword.
It's more than that, man. It's more than that. It's more than that. My God, we are not our flesh suits.
But it's wrong.
Wrong.
It's wrong.
I'll tell you why you shouldn't do it, because it's wrong. It's wrong. He said that. Somebody was talking about promiscuity, and he really had a meltdown. It was on one of his private Q&As, and he was like, "I'll tell you why not to do it, because it's wrong." It's there is karma, there is consequence, and it's not free, man. That money is not good money. That money is tainted, in my humble opinion. UG Rose is here.
My favorite.
Kat, we need you to rap, as Prince once said. Are you a Prince fan?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
We're doing
good.
You?
Oh yeah. How are you? How you doing?
We're sat in the sun. We're sat in
I'm
the
sorry,
light.
my connection is messed up. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Very good. Very good. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of yes, I can hear you. There's like a little bit of a lag and there's like a little bit of noise in my background, so my apologies, but hopefully you can hear me.
It's okay.
Yeah, this was great. All the discussions, everything that everybody contributed was wonderful. What Haley discussed is pretty much, Richard, what I discussed with you one of the first times that we spoke. That resentment, and that implicit expectation that women show ourselves in, the most explicit ways, kind of is what fueled my anger at my own femininity and kind of made me feel like a little alien to myself because, I think that everything has become so pornographic and so consumable that we've become like really frustrated, desirous of instantaneous satisfaction, consumption, like cannibal, like convenient cannibals. Like we consume everybody, we throw them away. We consume and throw away what, the parts that we don't want. And the best parts of who we are not recognized. And the lack of that recognition is what fuels the contempt and the resentment that we have between one another. Because, like Pierre, no one's asking you, well, what made you really like skateboarding? Or what's the best song that you feel you ever composed? Richard, like no one's asking you as a man, well, what about tarot cards made you like tarot cards? And tell me more about like your supernatural experiences or what made you recoil from wanting to be involved in the military, or what made you want to dance. All these elements of like the truth of who you are and your soul is blatantly disregarded. Meanwhile, everything that is fallible, everything that can be taken from you, you can be in an accident and incapacitated, you could be burned beyond recognition. Who is going to care about your personage once that is diminished? And that frustration is what has everybody so angry at and resentful toward one another because, okay, I've run into another person who just wants to consume me and throw me away.
That makes
Sorry, that was a ramble.
That makes perfect sense. I see a lot of women that feel that exact thing. I think the primary issue with a lot of young girls is that they feel like their value is surface level when it comes to physical appearance and all of these things. And I've never been a component of that. I think that physical appearance should be embraced to a certain degree, but it shouldn't be everything that you are. Except what I think is that there's a narrative here that's being ignored sometimes, and that a lot of women feel this way, but I think a lot of men are completely ignored on both fronts as well. So not only are they not even looked at for their physical appearance, they're ignored for their personage and physical appearance. And these are like the lost, it's the majority of men, actually, a good percentage of men that aren't even seen, whether it be physical appearance or at all, let alone, their actual personality and personage as well.
UG Rose.
Right.
You spoke so much truth in such a short space of time.
I know, genius, really. Fucking hell, man.
You have a unique capacity to cut through the layers of illusion with the swords of your words. Chop, chop. You got to get that YouTube channel going. We need people who are telling.
I am, and part of it's like, I'm sorry to cut you off.
It's okay.
Oh, But I also wanted to add, yes, that thank you for your you and Pierre, as well as like the collective, the fam in the chat, like, because something that as women, I can appreciate this about my uncle, even though sometimes we butt heads about what's happening in the family. Sometimes I have been very flustered by their expectation of me to be the responsible one, because due to our own family matters and dynamics, sometimes they feel that they can't speak with my sister, they can't speak with my mother. They're like, well, they can't be spoken to. I'm like, okay, well, it's a little abusive to feel to like kind of put all the expectation on me to adult, but they're still like, but if you're the one that we can come to, you should use that. Understand that we believe that you're capable. Just like when you and Pierre both said, hey, get your YouTube channel together. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do it because I've never done anything like this before, but you're wonderful role models and you keep me accountable to the possibility that I can use my voice to make a difference, just like Rin is doing, just like, you know, like women like Erinit and Haley and all the other contributors that come and speak with you all are not afraid to divulge things that are on our minds and learn to sit with the discomfort that we all have with our idiosyncrasies and our shortcomings, and learn how to be with one another in our humanity, and maybe then we can get back to it instead of, you know, letting this whole regime take over where we become digitized hollow people.
She's doing it
so
again.
we do need masculine men, we do need men. What?
Yuji, every time you speak, I am blown away by wisdom. I am blown away by wisdom every time you speak, and that does not happen to me quite often. Any conversation that we've had, you throw so much wisdom and truth. And here's the thing, I don't even think you notice, but a lot of the reception that you'll get within the chat or whoever hears you receive you really, really positively. And the unfortunate thing is like in the YouTube landscape, there's no one like you, man. You know, to have your voice be heard. And if you were to start your own channel, I think everybody would definitely be here for you in that sense.
100%. Some people choose.
Well, I have made another video.
Good. Good. This is what you're supposed to do. The path has chosen you. You didn't choose the path. The path chose you. That's what somebody told me about martial arts. They were like, sometimes the martial art just attaches to a person. This is your martial art. It's chosen you. And if you express it, you're going to feel so much better because it's in you. It's authentic.
Right, and thank you. A lot of it is like I don't want to become zealotous. I don't want to become like fundamentalist. I do want other people to come and sit with me and share with me what they've been through, because it's easy for, like, I got to a whole to do with my family post on Instagram about vitamins because my little brother wanted to go out and my mom is considered immunosensitive. I'm like, dude, you have to take something. He's like, dude, I'm fine. I'm young. Nothing's gonna happen to me. I'm not gonna catch the Roni. And like I blew a gasket. I'm like, oh my God, you're gonna get in the families. And I'm like, wait a minute, whose narrative am I letting play in my head? I need to chill out, and I don't need to be telling people how to live their lives. What my overall hope is that we practice care for one another, and we get back to that sense of having faith in one another and understanding that, you know, instead of saying trauma, we're all beings of impact. We all have the ability to penetrate the realities of one another, and either it be something that's positive or something that's negative is the difference between trauma versus edifying someone else's life. And if we can get back to that point where we're cultivating one another and we're challenging one another to think beyond our bracket of thinking, we will be better off for it. So, you know, especially between women and men, like, yes, men, you're like the wall for a woman when we dance, but for me as a dancer, I've always loved a man who could dance with me, because dancing turned into like the woman turn around, bend over, back that ass up, instead of like understanding, like, look me eye to eye, look at me in the eye, and you know, and dance with me, and all of the bravery that I'm right. It is the jam though for the 99 and the 2000. Yeah, but but it's wonderful to have a man like know how to move and maneuver around the dance floor. We can only be brave because you provide the framework for us to be brave. And that's the way that like that masculine energy, in whichever way you choose to express it, is really vital to us. We are able to do what we are able to do, and we reciprocate, and we kind of bloom for you, and mirror you, because you provide that stability and that safety for us to be ourselves. And as women, I think that it would be beneficial to us to provide that same framework for you to be vulnerable and open and honest and say, you know what, this is what ticks me off, and how can we not do this? Because when you get this way, I don't hear you, and that hurts. I want to be able to hear you, and bring us again back down to like a human level, a human discussion.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is absolutely right.
That was
And
all.
yeah, that was all the wisdom of 100 years within like 2 minutes.
To say.
Yeah, no, but
oh, the Stardust baby, bow.
yeah. But what I love about what you're saying is you're basically saying that everybody has a piece within the mechanism that ties us all in together. And it's not that one gear is bigger than somebody else's and that there should be only one type of gear. Rather, there is a place for every type of role, and we should acknowledge that role. And it doesn't necessarily mean that one is better than the other. In fact, all of these things just dance and move harmoniously in its own way. Dude, look at how diverse this composition is. I love this shit. This is the way it should be, though, man. It's super diverse, dude. I love this, man. It's
exactly.
Well, if you message us on we'll organize doing the interview on your channel, and maybe me and Pierre can be the stabilizers for you to learn how to do it. So you're talking to someone, and then eventually you'd be happy just talking to a camera on your own, I hope.
Yuji, do you have the link to your
Absolutely.
Your
I truly appreciate that.
Do you have the link that we could post in
I know that my I'll have to get it from YouTube and I can send it to you. I know it's just my name. However, my name appears on my handle is how you can find me on YouTube.
I'm gonna try to find it right now and then send it to everybody.
I'm sorry, that's my aunt. That's my niece. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I said, and I appreciate your support. I appreciate everyone's support. That's my ladybug. It's my niece. Richard, yeah. She's going to be playing tomorrow, right?
Kat, do you? Hi.
Okay.
You used to do poetry, right?
Yeah, I compose songs and poetry and stories. Mm-hmm.
Could you put some of them on your Instagram for people to take a look at?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for coming on.
And I just got this today, so I'll be reading.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Love.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye. There's yeah, Yuji Rose always says a lot in a very short space of time.
She's so good, man. Like, I'm so glad that we met. It's like she's a really an amazing person, man.
Yeah, and she's good with words, and there's a poetic quality to what she says, which is part of the skill. It's not what you say sometimes; it's the way in which you can construct. She said men and women need to enter each other's realities. I was like, whoa, right. You're tripping me out, man.
I think some people just naturally have inclination to be orators, speakers, and I think some people, especially someone like Yuji Rose, is just made to do exactly that very thing. And I want to just hammer the point that a lot of people that are genuinely naturally gifted at what they do, oftentimes they hide the most. And it saddens me a lot. It really does, because out of all the talented people that I've spoken throughout the years, I see a similar pattern of them not putting themselves as out there as somebody like, for example, Jake Paul or Logan Paul would, and if there's actually one thing that we can learn from idiotic YouTubers and influencers, it's that if the talented, gifted person were to take that page out of their book and put themselves out there, because that's exactly what this entire landscape really needs.
Yeah. There's there's a repeated line of poetry. I know that W.B. Yeats did it once, and he was referring how the people who really should shut the fuck up, they're the ones talking the loudest, and they're full of certainty. And the good people, they're full of doubt, and they're questioning themselves. She said she doesn't want to be a zealot or a fundamentalist. And I was thinking, but if we lived in a world that followed Eugene Rose zealotry and Eugene Rose fundamentalism, that wouldn't be a bad thing. Like,
Exactly.
we actually need some zealotry right now. We need, like, zealotry is out of fashion, but we need zealotry, because I do think this is a war that we're in.
Sure, man. Sure, I completely agree. It's just a very common pattern I've seen, and when they do put themselves out there, usually they actually get somewhere. My friend who I met out here in Prague, when I first met him 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, he was playing piano to himself in the back of a cafe. I came in guns blazing. Yo, bitch, put this shit out there. I swear to God, dude, it's so good. I went to every single one of his shows, and I was like, dude, you have to record something. You have to do it. You have to do it. 3 or 4 years later, he just released his first album. Oh, it's called Mazuk. You type that out in Spotify here. It's a neoclassical. He's a neoclassical piano player, basically.
And you're his hype man. You're a hype man for
his motherfucking hype man, dude. I'll show up.
You're a classical piano player.
Yeah, I'll show up like fully suited. The hair's all crazy, and I'd be sitting in the corner, and you would think I'd be at some metal show, but really, I'm just listening to neoclassical piano. So he just released his album, and he's been played on KEXP, a really famous radio station in Seattle. He's getting all these blog posts and like getting picked up by a bunch of people in the last 2 days, man. And I'm like, yes, exactly. This is what we need. Not maybe not another SoundCloud rapper. Lil Klimp took that position, but you know, we can definitely have more people that are along the lines of this.
Lil Klimp was the final prophet of mumble rap, and there'll be nobody else after him. He's the seal. He ends mumble rap. That's it. It's over.
He killed the game. Lemon drop.
We've gone today for 3 hours. That's a record, I think.
That was a good one, though. That was a good one. There was a lot of stuff here, man, for sure.
There was. Well, any final thoughts, Mr. Pierre?
Flip for the future.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. I have nothing more to add other than that should be a t-shirt. Flip faux the future.
I was thinking about it. Number 4, man.
Flip faux my faux head.
Flip for your forehead.
I think I actually might have burnt my forehead doing that.
Just
So one side of my head was sweating and the other side was dry. I'm burning on one side.
You got your tan, man. You painted your head pink.
That's what it is. I just want to be pink. God, let me be pink. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure here on the Tentacle Croissant, holding the dimensional portal open so that my imaginary friend can appear as in this dimension as a material being. Can you hear that?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. Pierre is available over on his YouTube channel, Pierre XO. I'm taking a break from Spartan Life Coach. I'm on Richard Grannon Philosophy, where I can post weird shit. We look forward to seeing you again very soon. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.